It's my pleasure to call to order the Town Council meeting for February 8th, 2022. It's good to see everybody here. We got a full house tonight. We got a lot of awards and recognitions that we will be getting to shortly. Want to ask Chaplain Robinson to do our prayer. That's item number 1 on the agenda. I'd like for everyone to remember the folks in Charleston who lost their homes yesterday, and hope that we will respond as a community for those in need. Afterwards, we will do the pledge led by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Santos.
If you'd like to join me in prayer, let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this community. We thank you for those who serve and sacrifice each day of their hearts, their talents, and also their wisdom. God, we ask for your blessing upon our first responders, all of our government servants, and those who are out making this community possible. We also thank you for those who invest in this community, not just their finances and their business, but also their time, their love, their talent, and their relationships. And Lord, we lift up to you those who are suffering now in our nearby town and those who have lost due to fire. We ask for your blessing and care upon them. And now, Lord, we come to you and we ask for your wisdom to descend upon this room, pour through our hearts, through our minds, and especially through our words. And it's in your holy and precious name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Mr. Chapman?
I have a motion on the agenda that we bring items 4D, F, G, H, and I ahead of item A, the public hearing. And I'm doing this, is there a second for a comment?
Do we have a second? We have a
do-
second. We're in discussion. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mayor, I'm doing this because we've got a number of students with us tonight who need to get home to do their homework, number one. And we also have the Teacher of the Year who is here with us and she needs to get home for class tomorrow. And we've also got a police officer that getting an award. So that's the reason I'm doing it.
Sounds good. So the motion and the second is to move in item 4, to move items D, F, G, H, and I ahead of item A, which is public hearing. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to move those items in the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So now that would move us to,
4D.
wait a minute.
B.
Huh? Yes.
Recognition of teachers.
So the agenda is approved as amended? Yes, sir. That would move us to item 4D, which is recognition of Mount Pleasant Teachers of the Year. Mr. Icofano.
I'm John Icofano, new to Town Council. I'm the chair of the Education Committee, along with GM Whitley and Brenda Corley. We are going to recognize this year and every year thereafter the Teachers of the Year for the CCSD schools in the town of Mount Pleasant. So thank you for being here. But I also want to introduce Adam and Caroline. Come on up. They are on our youth council, and I don't know if everybody knows that we have a youth council. So the youth council is made up of 12 members of our high schools, and for the high school, you just have to live in the town of Mount Pleasant, but you could be on the youth council as long as you're in high school. As long as you live in the town of Mount Pleasant, you can go to another high school within the area. So they are going to present the Teachers of the Year, and we're happy to have them today. And thank you for serving, because they do serve right here, and I think they're after my job, which is fine. That's fine. But every month they do meet here, and you're more than welcome to attend as well. And they do fundraising, and they've got a lot of wonderful things happening. And we're going to be voting on something that they, I believe, made happen a little later. So we're very excited about that. But please, go ahead. Let me get out of your way.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I'm Adam O'Hesson, the Vice Chair of the Mount Pleasant Youth Council, and this is Caroline Tiller, a fellow youth counselor. I would like to thank the council for the opportunity to be able to present the Teacher of the Year awards this year. As students of our community, we value our teachers more than anything. To us, they are the backbones of our schools and have become mentors that we will cherish for the rest of time. On behalf of the Youth Council, we thank you for all you do and congratulate you on this amazing award.
Good evening, Town Council. I'm Caroline, and I'll be naming the Teachers of the Year. So for elementary schools, we have Catherine Cotter from Bell Hall Elementary. And I'll name all the names, and then we can have a pause at the end just for expedience.
Stand up here, we'll get your picture.
We have Stephanie Etheridge from Carolina Park Elementary. Carol Gary from Charles Pinckney. Ashley Pompaselli from James B. Edwards. Candace Harvey from Jenny Moore Elementary. Danica Dickerson from Laurel Hill Primary School. Patricia Smoot from Mamie Whitesides Elementary. Miss Ari Tuttle, who's not able to be here tonight, however, Mount Pleasant Academy Principal Kim Jackson is standing in her place. Natalie Harden from Sullivan's Island Elementary. And then for middle schools, we have Laura Owen from Lang Middle School. Julia Kuhn from Moultrie Middle School. And Joel Crosby from Thomas C. Cario Middle School. And finally, for high schools, we have Melissa Bale from East Cooper Center for Advanced Studies. Nicole Forrester from Lucy Beckham High School. And our last recipient is Jason Sox from Wando High School.
And now that we've honored the teachers, I would like to recognize the members of our constituent school board that are here for us. Pamela Juwan Goldman is here. Would y'all mind standing up? Y'all do great work for our community. Lane Kipp is the vice chair, and Jennifer Bilbro are all here. So thank y'all, and we appreciate your service. All right, item E stays where it was. We will move to item F, which is a proclamation for Dr. Jan, who everyone knew and loved in this community. If Ken Ayub and Dr. Jan's family would come forward, please join me in the middle, and I will. Good job, Jan. Good job. Youth council, you know that. Thank y'all for being here tonight, and on behalf of the town and council, and I want to thank Ken for just your role in all of this and helping us do this and get everybody here. I would like to read this proclamation. Whereas Dr. Jan Walter Robleski completed his residency at the MUSC Pediatric Dental Program in 2 years and ultimately decided to relocate to Mount Pleasant in 1979 and start his dental practice, Dr. Jan's Pediatric Dentistry, now known as Kids Teeth. And whereas Dr. Jan joined the Charleston Rotary Club in 1980, where he was involved in numerous projects such as Wood for Warmth and the Gift of Life. And whereas Dr. Jan served as Associate Professor in the Pediatric Dental Department at MUSC and worked at the Ladson Coastal Center when not working at his own practice. And with children at the center of his heart, Dr. Jan utilized his dental skills and skills with children and provided free dental exams at the annual Hootie and the Blowfish Homegrown Roundup and Back to School program for Low Country children. And Dr. Jan's passion for children led him to start a campaign to raise funds to install a horse arena at Wynwood Farm for Boys for their therapeutic equine program. And whereas Dr. Jan was a founding member of the Bulls Bay Golf Club and enjoyed playing a round or two with his friends and associates, and whereas Dr. Jan was a very active member of the Seacoast Church community in Mount Pleasant and was a true believer and child of God, Dr. Jan's life portrayed everything he believed, and he lived his faith every day. Now, therefore, I, Will Haney, Mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, proclaim Tuesday, February 8th, Dr. Jan Walter Wroblewski Day, and urge all citizens to join the National Children's Dental Health Month in February. And Ms. Wroblewski, thank you, and thank you for all of y'all's service to our town.
Well, thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure to serve this community for so many years. It really was.
It certainly was. Thank you. In case you all don't recognize this, this is not Grandpa from the Waltons. This is Ken Ayuk, who is our recreation director. You got an acting career ahead of you. Okay. So Gary, recognition of some of our athletes here. This would be Oceanside Collegiate Academy Girls Tennis State Champions and Oceanside Collegiate Academy Girls Volleyball State Champions. Would y'all please come forward?
I think they're outside.
They might be outside.
We're going to change places here.
Eric, did you get a picture when it was a full house? Did you get a picture when it was a full house for proof that?
Who's up first?
So one of the teachers of the year.
This is my favorite part of the council meeting,
with my daughter.
recognizing our youth. This is great.
Oh, this is Oceanside girls.
Yep.
We just had Lucy Beckham.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we're bringing in both of the teams just so that
Great.
we can move along. Is this both up? Both teams. Mr. Mayor and Council, this is, we are honoring tonight Oceanside Girls Tennis State Championship and the Oceanside Volleyball State Championship. Oceanside Girls won its first state championship in dominating fashion, winning every match in the finals. Ella DeFord also won the individual state championship the next weekend. The girls' tennis is coached by Sean Harris and Carlos Lozano. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a nice hand of welcome applause to the girls' state championship, Oceanside Girls. Oceanside Volleyball State Championship. The Oceanside Volleyball won its 3A state championship this past season. This was the school's fourth time playing for the championship, but its first win in the championship match. Their record for the season was 30-6. The team is coached by head coach Jennifer Fort and assistant coaches Wiley McCall and Brett Peterson. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the Oceanside Volleyball State Championship team.
Maybe step back a little so we're closer. Yep.
Good job, Wiley. This brings us to item I, longevity awards. We have a 25-year police department member who's going to be recognized tonight. Chief Arnold.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This evening, we have an opportunity to recognize Senior Police Officer Shinae Jones for 25 years of service. SPO Jones started her career in February of 1997, and for the first 2 years, she patrolled the streets of Mount Pleasant before finding her calling as a school resource officer. SPO Jones was one, and maybe it was Bobby Farrell, I don't know. They were the first SROs in the town of Mount Pleasant. She worked at the old Wando High School on Mathis Ferry for 4 years before transitioning to an administrative position within the department. She's worked in records in the department. She has worked in a dispatch center. She's worked as a duty officer. In 2005, she went back to being a school resource officer, worked primarily in the middle schools before being permanently assigned to Cario Middle School. In 2011, she worked a mixture of patrol and records, helping out staffing where needed. She went back to full-time patrol until 2015. Then again, she went back to the high school, to Wando High School, the new Wando High School, for the next 4 years. In 2020, she transitioned back to the records department to assist with the transition of our new records management platform. For 25 years, SPO Jones has exemplified what it means to be a public servant and a police officer. Anytime a need has arisen in the department, she is always there to step up and meet the need. She has accepted every assignment and every task with a can-do attitude. I have never heard her complain, not one time. She brightens everyone's day with a kind word or a funny meme in the morning when she sends out the morning reports. I love those. So, Shinae, I want to thank you for being the type of officer that all of our younger officers can look up to as a role model of how to be an exceptional police officer and public servant. For that and for everything you've done, thank you for 25 years of service, and congratulations.
Thank you, Chief. So this should move us back to item A. We're at 4A, the public hearing. So if Ms. Reed will set us up for this, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing to receive input on an ordinance to amend zoning code sections 156325, which is our principal use table, and 156326, our principal use conditions. Proposed is to make hotels and boutique hotels a conditional use where currently permitted based on our 2019 comprehensive plan future land use map.
Did people sign up or they don't have to sign up for a public hearing?
We have 4 individuals that signed up.
Okay, so when your name is called, please come forward, and when your time is up, you'll hear the beep.
The first is David Shimp.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you this evening, and I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Dave Shemp. I live at 1551 Ben Sawyer Boulevard. 8 years ago, the citizens of Mount Pleasant were galvanized into action after seeing many buildings go up that were clearly out of place in our town. And the people came out in droves to say enough is enough. Unfortunately, town council at the time just didn't pay attention. And at that time, Councilman Santos was the lone voice of reason on a town council that seemed to bend over backwards to accommodate any development proposal. In the next 2 election cycles, the citizens of Mount Pleasant, by then very engaged and very energized, voted overwhelmingly to replace the mayor and put in place a solid majority on town council to bring order to the out-of-control development in our neighborhoods and establish a plan for reasonable growth. This effort involved months of hard work by town staff, planning consultants, and a large cross-section of citizens from throughout our community to produce the town's comprehensive plan, which was subsequently approved unanimously by town council. Along with many others, I spent hours upon hours over many years to help put good people on council and to provide some inputs for the comprehensive plan. I haven't taken my eye off the ball. Concerned citizens never do. But after so many years, I simply want to go about living my life, trusting in you to implement the clear intent of the comprehensive plan that we all work so hard to put in place. Please, please, keep faith with the citizens of Mount Pleasant who voiced their support loud and clear for responsible growth as set forth in the comprehensive plan. And as you vote to formalize the zoning, please do not let the intent of the comprehensive plan, especially provisions intended to preserve neighborhood focus, be eroded by any other agendas. Thank you very much.
Jimmy Bagwell.
Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council, I'm back again. I spoke at the committee meeting just recently, and I'm back here tonight to support the second reading of this ordinance that Mr. Shemp just mentioned. The vote last month was 7-2, I think an overwhelming majority, and I hope it will see a full unanimous vote for this tonight. As Mr. Shemp pointed out, the citizens have spoken very loud and very clear. They want controlled growth. They want to protect our neighborhoods. We can't build many more roads over here. We're just about at capacity now. And if we continue to put development in places where it doesn't belong, we will wind up not being able to move at all. We need to protect our citizens, protect our neighborhoods, and I urge you to vote positively for this amendment tonight. I've lived here for 73 years. I was here when there were 4,000 people living in Mount Pleasant. We've got 95,000 now, I believe. We just cannot overdevelop this town anymore. The citizens have spoken. They spoke loud and clear, and I think that you ought to vote tonight to support what the citizens have said in the last 7 or 8 years. Please vote yes on that amendment tonight. Thank you very much.
Michael Bennett.
My name is Michael Bennett, 143 Trad Street, Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. This is infill development. It's on, what I'm speaking on is the Pages Thieves Market property. We think our plan is a beautiful plan for the town. The traffic impact for a boutique luxury hotel is about 1/3 of what it would be for retail and an office building. And the valuation on a luxury boutique hotel would be twice what it would be for retail or office or other uses that are approved for this site. I think from a town planning perspective, this is the best thing for the town. It makes more money, it's significantly less traffic, and it's a good chance it's going to be more handsome than a retail strip center. So I would ask you all we're all perhaps tired of development in our community, but this is infill development. There's something going to go built on Pages Thieves Market and where the volleyball courts are and where Santee's is located. This luxury hotel would be a great asset to the neighborhood. People will in the hotel go to sleep at 10 or 11 o'clock. They don't create disturbances. If they do, they're removed from the hotel, so it's a good use next to the old village. The people in the old village, I believe, would use the hotel as they do Hotel Bennett downtown. Local people going there for coffee in the morning, for a glass of wine in the evening. It is a great use for the town. It is much less traffic impact, and it makes the town a lot more money. And I think it would be much more beautiful than other intended approved uses. So I would hope that y'all would give consideration to the vote you do tonight. If this ordinance is approved, then what we're proposing would not happen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Kevin Cunane.
I don't want any more cheap hotels. We have enough of those. Mayor Summey was speaking the other day. I don't know if any of you caught him speaking. He wants to take North Charleston's schools out of CCSD, along with their money, okay? And one of the things he mentions is Mount Pleasant, they're all homes. Owner-occupied houses don't pay school taxes, the quirk of the law. So the commercial is what pays the school taxes. What I worry about is you say no to my friend Mr. Bennett, and along comes some condominiums. And then they don't contribute to the schools, but they take seats from the schools. And this is the type of thing that could happen over and over and over with different properties. I know it's not that one property that he's mentioning, it's the whole concept. So I'm against hotels when they're cheap garbage. We have a lot of those. And all at the same level. When you start to show better stuff, the taxes are gonna be higher, and you're gonna provide amenities for the neighbors. So I think the school issue is something that needs to be thought about. Yeah, a strip mall could go there, but I could easily envision condominiums or crammed development like the one that happened when the mayor screwed up that vote in July of 2015 over there at the Atlantic. That's a lot of apartments, a lot of people, a lot of kids going to school. Schools are crowded enough. Thank you.
That's all I have signed up, sir.
Thank you. Any others for this public hearing, which is item number A? None on that. I'm required to sound the gavel to end that public hearing, which moves us to our next public hearing, which is item B under section 4 of the agenda, a public hearing to receive input on the proposed amended municipal budget for the fiscal year. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good evening. This is a public hearing pursuant to Code Section 6-1-80 of the South Carolina Code of Laws on the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget. The proposed amendments total $15,149,278.
All right. Do we have anyone to speak?
I do, sir. Kevin Kunane.
Okay, I have to do this during the budget because there's not much other time to do it. The mayor gets a vehicle. At some point in the last year, I presented you a photograph taken from a car of someone looking at a family at the park, and it was put onto social media. It wasn't close pictures of the kids or anything like that, but kind of creepy. Think somebody's taking a picture. It's posted on the mayor's social media. So I went down a little road trying to figure out, was that taken from a town vehicle? Can't really get an answer. Yeah, you can smirk, Mr. Mayor, that's okay. I see you smirking.
I'm allowed to smile,
You
Mr.
can
Kinane.
smile all you want, sir.
And you're using up your 2 minutes, so I
That's
suggest
fine.
you get on with it.
So I FOIA the maintenance records for the mayor's vehicle, and I'm told there are no maintenance records for the vehicle. So now I say, well, who's funding it? It's based on this vote every year. So if we can't tell what this vehicle's being used for, we shouldn't be paying for it. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment?
That's all I have signed up, sir.
Any others for this section of the public hearing? If not, this public hearing is also closed. Which brings us to our third public hearing, which is number C, item C, public hearing to receive input on proposed Seventh Amendment to Development Agreement by and between CDM of Charleston and the town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this is a public hearing for a development agreement. This will be the Seventh Amendment to the development agreement. At this time, this is to amend an exhibit to the development agreement that establishes access for a document entitled Highway 17 Access. As proposed, the exhibit shows the movement of egress F moving to an ingress egress. And that is all I have for you. The next public hearing, development agreements require 2 public hearings. The next public hearing will be March 8th at Town Council meeting, 6 p.m.
Thank you. Anyone signed up to speak to this?
I have none.
Is there anyone here to speak to this item on the public hearing? If not, this public hearing is also closed. Thank you. This moves us to item E, which is a presentation by Housing for All Mount Pleasant. Thank you for coming this evening, and we appreciate all the good work you are doing.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members of Town Council. My question is, here it is. I was confused. How is this going to move? I'm Denise Fugo. I am the Executive Director of Housing for All Mount Pleasant. And we just wanted to give you a brief update as to what we're working on for 2022, and then I'll comment briefly on what we're working with for 2023 and 2024. First of all, I want to thank the Prosperity Builders, LLC, Tony Berry and Tammy Stevens Wilson. Gregory Ferry Town only has 6 units left to sell, and we're very, very excited. This has been a phenomenal project for us, and some of the demographics, this is an example of the kitchen, and some of the demographics show who we are helping with affordable housing and workforce housing. So the average age is 39.8. 83% of the buyers are female. Now this is just the first half of the buyers, the first 18. 55% are single, 11% are married. Ages 20 to 49 is 66%, and then aged 50 to 69 is 34% of the Gregory Ferry Townhome purchases. And only 11% of the residents will be children. So we're very excited. We'd like to again thank Prosperity Builders for this first project. I wanted to also talk about the 2 projects we'll be working on for 2022. We're working on the Flood Sisters, which is 805, 807 Simmons Street. This has been family property since 1891. And then Michael and Wanda Robinson on Isaac Boston Street, and this is property that's been in their family since 1873. And we're honored to work with our planning department, and they've been extremely helpful. This is an example. This was the housing that was on 805, 807 Simmons Street. There's now 2 foundations, which will have to be removed. And this is the home. There's a lot of interest in Mount Pleasant from seniors. I have a lot of women in their 70s and 80s coming to me with property. This was the first group, and there are more. So this will house 4 sisters, ages 71 to 84. And they will all live together in the one house, and we'll be working with nonprofit financial institutions, and we'd like to get some help from you all to help work with the banks in our community, because we have quite a few bankers in Mount Pleasant, and we'd like them to start helping us with their community reinvestment funds. So, but this is that example. And then this is the layout for the property. This is in the Snowden community, and this will be 4 homes. And again, this is for workforce and senior housing. And again, this is housing that we protect by deed restrictions in as many years as we can. Housing for All Mount Pleasant will be working with the staff to make sure that we can maintain the ability to provide workforce and senior housing in the commercial overlay district, in the Sweetgrass overlay district, and hopefully the future cultural arts district. What we do, we have actually become a nonprofit developer. We work with 14 developers right now that are big developers that want to do multifamily housing, and we are working with them specifically because our largest employers in the town are desperate for housing. Our 3 hospitals need more housing. They cannot maintain staff earning less than $70,000 a year. So I'm hoping that 2023, we have that first project on the books. We are working with a number of families throughout the community that want to keep their land. We are establishing a land trust. We have some families that do not want to leave their land to their children. They want to leave it to a trust because they want to hold it into perpetuity. So we're trying to encourage people, if they keep their land, we've got to repay the bank, establish a contingency reserve, and then provide a revenue stream to the family. So that is how we are working as a nonprofit developer. Where we need your help, we need your help with all the banks at Mount Pleasant. They have a community reinvestment department, and we need their help on some of these projects that are coming to us. We have applied for community investment grant funding. We know that many of the departments have fundraisers, and if we can ever apply to receive that funding, that would be wonderful. And then we are reaching out to the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce as well. So 2022, we'll be working on those 2 residential developments. 2023, we hope to have a larger residential development, which we're working on right now, and also multi-family apartment complex, which will help support our largest employers in town. And I like to just quote Frank Lloyd Wright, "Home creates the foundation for every human being to reach their full potential." So thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that presentation. That was awesome. Do you have it? Can you share with us any data as far as what kind of careers the people that are purchasing these homes? I like the demographic per age, but do we know what kind of work they do?
Yes, yeah, actually, and I apologize, I should have I have a chart.
That would be
I apologize, I can send it to the town
Please.
council. But just, we have civil engineer, we have people working at law offices, we have some nurses, we have some teachers, we have manicurists, we have hairstylists, we have a landscaper. Those are just a few. So it's mostly service-type positions. And I do have a chart that I will send to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate it.
Anything else?
Anyone else?
So if you do have some fundraising activity going on in the town where you can dedicate some dollars to the Housing for All Mount Pleasant, what our biggest challenge is right now is building our contingency reserve for each of these projects so that we are bankable with the nonprofit financial institution. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
All right, I don't think I skipped any of those. This brings us to Section 5 on the agenda, approval of minutes from the January 11th Town Council meeting and the December 2021
approve.
financial. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes and the financials are approved. Item 6 is public comment. We have people signed up. When your name is called, please come forward.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have several speakers, so I'll ask you please to come up two at a time. The first person speaking and the second on deck, please. First is Ken Barak, and right behind him is Brumby McLeod.
Good evening. My name is Ken Barrack, 2681 Egrets Landing Court. And I'm here to talk about access to fields. As Stephen Covey describes in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's an important and urgent issue. I realize it's not a hot button topic like drainage or traffic or development. It is the kind of issue that can impact generations. I've been a Mount Pleasant resident since the Hungry Neck soccer days of 1991. The Recreation Department has always been a pillar of what makes Mount Pleasant, Mount Pleasant. It has the well-deserved reputation of being the best of the best. The Mount Pleasant Track Club, Aquatic Center, and youth programs are examples. To say everything is copacetic with the Rec Department, however, would ignore the decades-long strain between club and recreational use of the fields. Club sports is also a pillar of what makes Mount Pleasant, Mount Pleasant. Club sports provide a feeder system to our high schools and college teams and a level of coaching for the sport and life that recreation programs cannot match. I would guess that most of, if not all, of the Oceanside volleyball players honored tonight play on a club team. My point is that club teams, and more importantly, teams with predominantly Mount Pleasant family members, deserve access to municipal fields because those residents provide the foundation of the teams that bring recognition and honor to the town on the state, regional, and national level. Eventually, the club teams will collapse without the ability to grow with the town, and the feeder system will collapse with it. Is denying or severely limiting access for club teams to grow and thrive congruent with our motto, Cresco, Mount Pleasant? I urge the mayor, town council, the recreation department, and the clubs to open the lines of communication and break through this bottleneck. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
Claudia Hassel, you're up next, please. Go ahead, Brumby.
Good evening. My name's Brumby McLeod. I'm at the College of Charleston. 731 Milden Hall is my residence. I have this dream that Mount Pleasant could be the football capital of America. And I have this dream that we could create a tournament called the Iceland Cup, where Europe and North America played to ultimately battle it out here in this tournament I came to 40 years ago, called like the Turkey Cup or Thanksgiving. So I put a group of students on this to see what happened. Where did we go wrong? Where did business, community, and government go wrong? We have a college team. We have one of the oldest pro teams. We have a national champion high school team. We now have 2 high schools that are going to compete to be state champions. We have multiple youth soccer championships across the club. And we got this legacy from this grumpy old soccer coach that tricked me to go to Baptist College, claiming it was Charleston. His name was Ralph Lundy. And I grew up in Atlanta, and that's why I found the College of Charleston. And I'm chair of the Hospitality Tourism Department. And I'm proud of this city. You guys are doing great work. Let's see if we can solve this soccer field problem. And I think it has more to do with relationships and hurt feelings, because I noticed all those Mount Pleasant soccer signs that were when it was controlled by the city have faded. And we've had all these different club names go on top of the old entity that's still there. I think we can do something really cool here. I hope you join me in this vision because it's going to take a community. And I got to convince Iceland that we're worth coming to play. Remember, they made the World Cup, and there are 340,000 residents in the country of Iceland. I think 95,000 people in Mount Pleasant can figure a way to get some fields and play some ball, some football, F-U-T-B-O-L. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Stuart Whiteside, you're up next.
Good evening, council members. I am here speaking on behalf of Claudia Hassel, who had to leave to go attend soccer practice. She lives in Mount Pleasant in Marsh Harbor Lane. She is a freshman at Lucy Beckham Garrett High School. She was a Mount Pleasant rec soccer player for many years, and she says it was one of the best times of her life. It helped her develop a real passion for her to play the game. Today, Claudia is a soccer player for the South Carolina Surf Soccer Club and now is on the varsity girls team at Lucy Beckham. In 2021, Claudia was fortunate to be recognized nationally as one of the top 11 players in the country by the U.S. Soccer National Premier League. While Claudia is flattered by this honor, it would not have been possible without her great teammates, her dedicated coaches, and a regular training schedule. Whether it is soccer, lacrosse, flag football, or rugby, club sports provides young people like Claudia the opportunity to develop and compete at a high level and pursue our dreams of being the best they can be. It has been harder and harder for teams to find places to practice and play games. Often, Claudia has had to drive to North Charleston or Somerville due to a lack of field access here in town. It would be really great if the town could work together with club teams to help all kids have more access to the fields and resources in our neighborhoods. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Claudia and many other student athletes in Mount Pleasant.
And may we get your name, please, for the record?
Madeline Moy.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, Stuart Whiteside, 618 Hopcall Bluff Drive, Mount Pleasant. I'm representing the applicants on 2 items on the agenda tonight, the Louise Terrace annexation and zoning and the Carolina Park access amendment. At the time, if y'all have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you very much.
Chris Riley, you're up next, and William Hamilton after that, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening, and thank you for your public service. My name is Chris Riley. I'm a resident of Mount Pleasant, live at 1227 Farragut Street, and a resident for the past 20 years. I have 2 children, 13 and 11, both of which go to school in Mount Pleasant and play youth sports for their school, in the rec department, and in club sports. I'm passionate about the sports play in our kids' lives, both on the field and off the field, in the form of friendships, leadership, and team-oriented growth opportunities. I own a business headquartered here. And as part of owning and growing a business, I focus on hiring people that are well-rounded with team-based skill sets, that are leaders, seeking those well-rounded sports-oriented backgrounds. Furthermore, I'm a board chair for a nonprofit group here in the Low Country that serves under-resourced youth, both academically and athletically. I get to see firsthand the benefits athletics serves to complement our students. I'm an advocate for all sports. I'm a big advocate for club sports. Structure plays an integral part of individualized and team-oriented growth. I'm disappointed to hear that the town of Mount Pleasant Rec Department has restricted the use of facilities and discontinued its relationship with club sports. As a citizen, I feel this is a major setback for our town, so focused on the enrichment of its citizens athletically and the economic benefits associated with club sports. Feels to me that a collaborative youth athletic program, both club and rec, is much more advantageous to the overall enrichment of our kids, which goes hand in hand with the town and rec department's mission statements and vision. Town of Mount Pleasant's mission statement is to deliver superior performance in a manner that is distinctive and impactful to each person served, and that it establishes a standard for quality that endures for generations. More specifically, the rec department's mission statement is the responsibility of the Mount Pleasant Recreation Department to offer exceptional, comprehensive, yet sustainable and affordable recreation. The vision statement for the rec department is to serve as the state's leader in municipal government through the combined efforts of dedicated elected body, highly skilled staff, and engaged citizenry.
Thank you, sir. Your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Kevin Coonane next, please. Go ahead, William. You're up, sir. Go ahead.
William Hamilton, Best Friends of Low Country Transit. Happy to speak to the most advanced community in the improvement of public transit in the state of South Carolina. We're coming out of the pandemic. We need to get our ridership numbers on our routes up to retain our routes and to obtain better service in the future. Funding for that is now available through the half-penny sales tax and through federal funding, and the possibility to really improve our bus service with better stops and more service is ahead of us. The most important immediate opportunity we have is the number 41 bus route, which was designed by the town and CARTA to serve a lot of tourist-oriented areas and recreation areas, almost all of our hotels, Patriots Point, Shem Creek, and Wando Crossing Shopping Center, and all of Coleman Boulevard. Each winter, up until COVID, we would go out and discuss this with the hotels and get people, and you have to do this during their off-season. That's the easiest way to get a lot of more people on the bus. We also need to go out, talk to students, the disabled, our working people, and people that are coming to town to Mount Pleasant for their jobs. We've done this in the past with the town's cooperation. I believe we can get our ridership up. The other thing I'd like to mention is there have been some serious problems with delays and contractions for the plan for the bus rapid transit line to Somerville. It now starts at the fairgrounds and ends at Reynolds Avenue. That is not going to do the things for the people of Mount Pleasant it needs. It's not going to help people get to work very well, and it's not going to help our people get anywhere, because when they get downtown, they're going to be standing in flood water by a crowded street waiting for buses that are snarled in traffic. The city of Charleston made tremendous mistakes here. So did CARTA. We should try to fix this if we can, but at the very least, we need to get ridership on our routes up so we can keep our buses and get improved service. And when summer comes, double ridership on the beach shuttle. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coonane and Joy Klingman next.
Kevin Coonane, 3032 River Vista Way in Dunes West. I have sent to council evidence and video proof of wrongful conduct by this mayor. Slowly, it appears that most of council has come to the realization that this is a very serious matter. It impacts the integrity of our police department, which does great things every day for this community. We don't have political police in this country, and we don't have political police in Mount Pleasant. Any usage of police for political purposes is plain and simple, fundamentally wrong. Un-American. In this instance, the mayor undertook to misuse a police report to try to gain political leverage for himself. It is time for council to take action and censure the mayor. It's a simple vote, and it would send a clear message that this is not a backwater town, and the integrity of our police and their activities are not subject to political maneuvering. Police reports are not filed and preserved to be manipulated by anyone. Our police officers are bound by law to file accurate reports, which they do. No one, not even the ceremonial mayor, has the right to meddle in or falsely characterize any police report. To do so is egregious conduct, and council cannot allow it to stand. You know, the false gentility of this mayor was put on display again tonight. Smirking at a speaker and trying to debate a citizen from the chair is something this mayor has done repeatedly. I've noticed that I get treated differently. You know, the curious citizen is the enemy of corruption. People who are corrupt or up to no good in one way, shape, or form, they don't want curious citizens. They don't want me up here speaking. They don't want me filing FOIA requests, especially not somebody who's been up there and knows how things roll. It's time, council. It's time that action be taken. on what occurred under this mayor's watch. Thank you.
Margaret Rodenberg, next, please.
Hello, my name is Joy Klingeman. I'm a local here of Mount Pleasant, lived here my whole life. I am a soccer player as well, which I'm sure you're all surprised to hear. I am here to speak regarding the rec department field use, and while I love the rec department, I think my kids do every single item they offer. I am here to speak on behalf of club use. I myself was a local club player here in Charleston. I played for clubs that don't even exist anymore. Somerville, Hungry Neck, you name it. I graduated from Bishop England, went on to play at USC, and I was able to do all of that because of all of the opportunity that I was offered here in Mount Pleasant. I just want to say that sports in general is such a solid foundation for all of our kids. And I think we really need to recognize that and respect that. I don't know about y'all, but I struggle with kids and devices, and anytime a kid tells me that they want to play a sport, I want to give them every opportunity to do that. I personally coach, and I just want to advocate in any way I can to let these kids have more opportunities to play. And I appreciate your time letting me speak. Thank you.
Jason Biggs.
Hello, Margaret Rodenberg, 808 Post Oak Drive. Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to reiterate some of the comments we have heard from others. I have 2 children in 4th grade at Mount Pleasant Academy who play on club soccer teams, one who also participates in rec department sports. They started out their soccer endeavors playing with the rec league, and we are extremely grateful for the services that the rec department provides for our community. I am not here to discuss rec sports versus club sports. I think we all know that both serve their own unique purpose for our youth communities here and across the country. I am here to ask for the council's help in coming to some kind of understanding as to why the town of Mount Pleasant can't provide enough green space for all children. And if the town can accommodate clubs along with the rec leagues, why are club teams, plus my space, why are club teams only being subjected to weekends, knowing that that's their game time? If fields are sitting empty, that's rental fees and easy revenue streams for the town being lost every week. I played 2 Division I sports in college. I've coached many camps and youth teams, and I can promise you that it takes a village with collective effort, respect, and support for all athletic offerings to work together in order to be successful. Mount Pleasant club teams represent our town with sportsmanship and pride all throughout the Southeast in tournaments, and these kids will only be as good as the support they get from you, our elected leaders. Congratulations to all of you who got elected and re-elected in November. I know many of those votes cast for you were in good faith, that you would be true to your word in listening to all residents and helping to solve our many overcrowding issues. Thousands of parents are humbly asking for your help in figuring out solutions for our children, and I'm confident that you know in your hearts that you need to do something about green space, and not just for today's kids, but for future generations. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Lauren Everett.
Good evening, Jason Biggs, 2620 Ringside Lane. I recognize several of you. I respect all of you. You guys have a very difficult job, and I thank you for what you do. I'm also here to talk about field space. I live in Mount Pleasant. I own a business in Mount Pleasant. I have 3 kids that play as any sport and every sport you can imagine in Mount Pleasant. And the rec department serves an amazing demographic of kids. And the best way to describe why I'm here to urge you guys to reconsider not partnering with all the clubs and not just one club. I'm not here for one club. I'm for all club sports. Is my oldest son started in rec soccer where I was a volunteer coach, and then he got better and he needed more competition, and so he went to Cane Hoy Athletic Club, which currently has 541 Mount Pleasant residents that are about to be displaced as well because we're not offering or coming to a fair agreement with offering field space. And he got a little bit better, and so he went to surf, where I also coached, and at that point, instead of volunteering, I was a paid coach. And That same kid was just recognized right here in this very room for winning a national championship. He was honored as a Mount Pleasant team player. All of his teammates were honored, and now we're telling the same kids they can't use those fields where they worked so hard to get to that accomplishment. And to me, like my gentleman from the College of Charleston, I feel like there's a better solution to what we're currently giving all these kids here. That's just one small nonprofit club that I'm a volunteer coach at currently. And I can only imagine all the other clubs that are also being displaced, and I don't think we should be doing that to our kids. So I urge you guys to come to a different agreement and partnership with these clubs. Thank you so much for your time.
Erica Strahan.
Hello, committee. Lauren Everett, 3791 St. Helens Drive. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. And thank you for hearing me repeat a message you've heard. There's some disappointment in the decision not to share the town of Mount Pleasant rec facilities with club sports. I put my kids in club sports for the same reason many other people do. It's where they learn to compete. It's where they learn to be leaders. It's where they learn to have sportsmanship, how to agree to disagree, if you will. And that doesn't happen off the sporting field in today's world very much. I have two boys. They play soccer, basketball, and baseball. They all started in the wonderful town of Mount Pleasant rec department, and they now all play exclusively club sports. And they're like thousands of kids who are currently being denied access to fields. I'll give you an example. Charleston County School District unfortunately made the decision not to share its school basketball facilities with 4th through 8th grade basketball players. You know who did? The city of North Charleston. You know who did not? The town of Mount Pleasant. It was a wonderful opportunity to engage with athletes in our community, and we chose not to. Furthermore, I'd say sharing facilities with private clubs is not unique. As a matter of fact, it's the norm. The exception is the town of Mount Pleasant. I'd urge you to look at the websites of Charlotte Independent Soccer Club. They have clubs in Fort Mill and Rock Hill, and they use public parks to train their athletes. I'd encourage you to look at South Carolina United Football Club in Columbia. 75% of their playing surfaces are on public parks. CISA in Greenville, 9 of their 11 facilities are on public parks. We can do this too. Okay, thank you, guys.
Mary Maltezos.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Erica Strawn, and I live at 1376 Old Brickyard Road. My husband and I moved here in August of 2017 with our 3 children and knew nobody. It was a leap of faith. We moved here because we wanted to have a better quality of life. Coming from Phoenix, and I gotta tell you, we are so grateful to be here. So January, my oldest son, who was 13 at the time, this is January last year, he broke his collarbone. Shortly after that, he got COVID. At the time, they had to isolate for 10 days, so he isolated in our frog. He was so very bummed to be missing training and missing playing. He was finally cleared to play, but he had grown 3 inches during that time and 3 shoe sizes. And so what happened when he went on the field? Well, his body did not respond the way he was accustomed to it responding. He got sidelined with Achilles tendonitis. I swear to you, I am not making this up. Finally, he gets a bone contusion on his knee. The good news is that 2 weeks before Nationals, he was cleared to play. We flew to Denver and we won Nationals. My son is the goalkeeper on that team, and he did a shutout with the help of his team. I'm here because I'm not an expert on running a town. I'm not an expert on a rec center. By the grace of God, on a day-to-day basis, I feel like I can raise good humans. But we've made a decision to partner with our churches, with our public school teachers, and with our club team in that effort. And I'm inviting you humbly to partner with me and the other parents to continue to raise good humans in our town. Thank you.
Jeff Peacock.
Hello, I'm Mary Maltezos. Distinguished members, the benefits to participants of club sports outside physical fitness alone are abundant. And many people have explained today what all of those benefits are. I was so saddened to learn that the Mount Pleasant Recreation Department has restricted these benefits to the children of the Low Country by discontinuing its long-standing relationship with club sports. These clubs have grown and developed with the support of the town, and removing this availability will put an enormous strain on the ability to provide these much-needed benefits to the youth of Mount Pleasant. I've been a citizen of Mount Pleasant for 26 years, a Mount Pleasant business owner for 15 years, and a parent of 3 daughters who participate in recreation and club sports in Mount Pleasant for the past 10 years. Most recently, my daughter had the honor of representing the United States and Spain through club sports. I sit at the soccer fields at least 4 days a week, realistically probably more, and there seems to always be available green space. So I'm very curious as to why this decision has been made. Have the members considered the impact on the families and the children of Mount Pleasant? I believe you understand the importance of differing levels of competition. I would also remind you that girls club soccer is one of the largest organizations serving female team sports. Will this field space be occupied inequality for other female team sports? These club teams also offer scholarship programs to many of the Low Country youth who may otherwise be unable to participate in competitive sports. These clubs have developed and trained these players for years with the availability of field space from the town. This partnership has prevented the need to privately explore the development of any additional field space. So the abrupt nature of this decision, in conjunction with the enormous amount of growth, limited availability to land, has left thousands of families without really reasonable options. It is not reasonable for us to have to drive from Mount Pleasant to James Island to be on field space. I would hope that members of the council will do everything in their power to encourage development to ensure that our children can have access to recreational field space irrespective of their level of play. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Jeff Peacock, 1508 Capel Street in Park West. I became a resident of Mount Pleasant in 1994. I was Ralph Lundy's assistant coach at the College of Charleston for 6 years. I worked with Mayor Flowers at the time, Tom O'Rourke, and of course Coach Lundy, to get the Patriots Point Soccer Complex, which is named the Cheryl Woods Flowers Soccer Complex, built. I understand as of today, they're going to play flag football in the Cheryl Woods Soccer Complex 4 days a week and not allow my 11-year-old daughter access. My understanding is the rec department offers flag football, lacrosse, rugby. I believe that's it as far as rectangular field space goes, and none are exclusively for girls, and none are for girls younger than 13. I'm not an expert on lacrosse, but I understand that boys and girls play somewhat of a different kind of lacrosse, so having co-ed is not good for girls. I don't think there's a lot of girls who want to play flag football. More power to them if they do. But I certainly agree with my predecessors, the folks who spoke before me, with my passion for giving clubs access to town. I want to put more of a spin on giving females access to opportunity. Thank you for your time.
That's all I have signed up, Mayor.
Anyone who didn't sign up?
Good evening, Perry O'Rourke, 2004 Brick Hill Parkway. Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully requesting that I receive the full 3 minutes to speak to council this evening.
Let me ask our attorney.
Mayor, it was stated that 2 minutes is the time for speakers tonight. Our ordinance provides that the chair and council can authorize between 1 and 3 minutes, but 2 minutes has been allocated, and we want that for fairness for all citizens. They should all have the same speaking time.
I would have to have a motion and a vote of council to allow one speaker to have 3 minutes when everyone else has been allowed 2. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion since he asked for 3 minutes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
3 opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay, the motion carries. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Tonight, my wife is driving a car full of 13-year-old Mount Pleasant boys in North Charleston for soccer practice. The round trip with traffic will take them about 2 hours, and there are fields right here in Mount Pleasant that are not being used tonight that are controlled by the Mount Pleasant Rec Department. The Mount Pleasant Recreation Department recently announced that there will not be any field space for club sports to use Monday through Thursday. These fields are built and maintained using our tax dollars. So why can our kids not use these fields? It is because they do not play for the Mount Pleasant Recreation Department because they cannot offer them what they need to develop as players, which is licensed, professional, and experienced coaches. Kids in this town are being penalized on their skill level. There are thousands of Mount Pleasant kids that play a variety of club sports that are facing the same problem. Where are these thousands of Mount Pleasant kids supposed to practice and play? How is the decisions being made as to what sports are allocated field space? What are they getting, where are they getting their data to make these determinations? Who in the community are they asking for input? The Mount Pleasant Recreation Department needs to be working with the clubs and assisting them by allocating them the necessary field space that our children need to practice and play. We do not need the Mount Pleasant Recreation Department to create their own competitive league. We just need them to start collaborating with the current clubs to help develop more fields on the properties the town currently owns. It is time for the Recreation Committee, with the support of council, to reshape the mission of our Recreation Department to include supporting all kids, no matter their skill level. The other reason I was asking for the extended time tonight, we get an opportunity as residents once a month to be able to speak directly to all members of council. As I stated before, I think it's 30.36, where it's 1 to 3 minutes is supposed to be allowed for public speaking. I'm not sure where their 2 minutes came from. It's kind of tough when you're reading this fast, trying to get a message across to the members of council, and the fact we only have one time a month that we have the ability to do it in person. I would like to really ask the members of council to consider changing that 2 minutes to 3. I do understand every one of you spends a lot of time and dedication to this town, and we appreciate all the time you spend handling business for the town. But again, I know it's adds to the length of time you have to sit here every night, once a month, but I think you understand that the people that put you in those chairs, your constituents, would really appreciate that little bit of extra time to be able to bring these issues in front of you and not have to rush through what they want, the points they're trying to get across. Again, thank you very much. Even finished up with 29 seconds to spare. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Ma'am, are y'all coming to speak or are y'all leaving? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a public comment, I guess?
Well, that was public comment, not council comment, that we normally don't do that. Because there's no rules, there's no motion, and we could end up with everybody doing a monologue.
Is he allowed to go up to make a public comment as a citizen? Is that what you're asking for?
You can go around and make a
Yeah, as a
public
citizen,
comment.
you can go up and make a public comment.
It's good.
All right. Let's move on to item 7, consent agenda items. These continue A through G on the back. These are all final readings. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval of all
Second.
the items.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve consent agenda items A through G? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda items are approved. This moves us to planning new business. We are on section 8, page 5 of 9 of your agenda. So Ms. Reed, if you will walk us through these items, please.
Yes, sir. All right. So this first request before you is an annexation and a request to zone to TH, Townhouse District, approximately 0.34 acre tract of land located at Louise Terrace. As you can see from the aerial.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second.
Is this for
there-
items 1 and 2?
Just item 1.
Okay.
Item 1 to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 22011.
Okay. The request to zone it to townhouse is consistent with what the comprehensive plan future land use map recommends, which
Move
is
to approve.
mixed neighborhood.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
I would, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, you have the floor.
I would like to say that while generally speaking, this council has been moving away from sort of improving rezonings that are making it more dense than R1. In this particular situation, this is a residence that is this is an area that is entirely surrounded by condos and townhomes and is in need of some redevelopment. And so this would be an improvement to that area that would be in keeping with what is currently surrounding that area.
And may I ask a question? Did I hear this is consistent with the comp plan?
Yes, sir. The mixed neighborhoods calls for diversity in housing, so it could be single-family, townhouse, duplex. So it's certainly consistent. The recommendation is just tempered by the fact that it should be consistent with what is surrounding and as far as height and those sorts of things. But it is an appropriate zoning district for this area.
Okay. Any other comment? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hyatt.
Okay, so you say the comp plan doesn't specifically mention townhouses?
It does. For mixed neighborhood, it says townhouse zoning is an appropriate zoning district.
But you said it could be single or townhouse or?
It could be, yeah. Appropriate would be R1, R2, duplexes, townhouses. So diversity in housing, all of those would be an appropriate request.
Well, when it's mixed neighborhood, that means business would be allowed in the area as well, sort of like Mill Street and that area that has some.
Yes, ma'am.
We would kind of be eliminating any business opportunities when we put townhouses in. Yeah, I'm not ever for upzoning the density. Some people showed up to commission that live in the neighborhood that asked that it not be zoned townhouse, and commission agreed with them. But I guess they didn't know that they should come and talk to us about that too. But there'll be another reading, I guess.
This is first reading,
First
yes.
reading.
It's first reading.
Yes,
Okay, so yeah, I'm a no on townhouses. I feel like the ones, when they say they're surrounded, they're kind of off in the distance. It's a small, single-family, little old neighborhood. To me, it's affordable housing, but that we'll be eliminating. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Could you go back to the map? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I don't have anything to say, I just want to go back
Which
to
map?
to the Google one you were just on?
Oh,
Like
the area, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there? Mhm.
This is the multifamily at the bottom.
Yeah,
Mr.
Cambridge
Mayor?
Lakes.
Yes, ma'am.
If
Mr.
we-
Iacono, you have the floor. Are you finished?
I don't, yeah, I just wanted to see the map. I don't have anything to
Okay.
say right now.
All right, Ms. Whitley?
If this does not get rezoned, it comes in as R1, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a business opportunity for that land. It would come in as R1.
Correct. It would come in as R1. So the density is the same. Mixed neighborhood calls for 9 units an acre. But what controls, because it's under 1 acre, is the development standards. So obviously your townhouse development standards are going to be different from, and lot sizes are going to be different from your R1 if it came in as that zoning district. So what would control would be your lot sizes and your setbacks.
Can I ask one more?
You may. Yes, ma'am. You have the floor.
So they could come in and ask for any zoning, couldn't they, other than, I mean, they could say, could we do commercial, could we do R4? I mean, they just happen to ask for townhouse, which would be the densest that would be allowed.
Yeah, they could have requested
They
any
could have requested
zoning.
business.
They requested townhouse, and anticipated, once you apply, all of the encumbrances that come with the property, it would probably be about 10 to 12 townhouse units.
Right. So on this one?
No, 2 acres.
2
So this is gonna be 2 parcels. The second one will be coming through Planning Commission this month. And total, it would be just under 1 acre, and it would be probably about 10 townhouse units.
So we're
Versus
changing.
about 3 to 4, probably single family.
Right. So right now, there's only 2 houses?
I think there's only one house, let me go back to the aerial. Yeah.
Right now, I mean, it's going to eventually
what
be
it was.
2 lots, right? So it'll be 2 single
No,
families?
it'll be aggregate. If the annexation and the zoning goes through, those 2 lots will be aggregated, and it'll be about 0.9 acre. It'll be under an acre, just under 1 acre, aggregated.
Okay. Once we hear the one that's coming up next
Yes.
door.
That's correct.
So you're talking about the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay, so we'll go from 2 residences to, you said 10 to 12 townhouses?
Probably about 10 to 12, once you apply all the standards.
Okay.
So these two, even though they're meant as one development, they will be on separate tracks? We'll have second reading on this next month and first reading on the other part, or
No,
what?
we'll catch up at final reading. Because it's a public hearing, you're required to have to put an ad in the paper, and there was an error with the TMS number.
Okay.
And so we're going to play catch up at final reading.
So when we get to final reading, we'll have the whole thing to be able to vote on that?
Correct.
Okay. Is that clear? Any other questions? I think I can read my writing. We did have a motion to approve in a second, right, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Yes, sir, that's
All
correct.
right, so all in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion.
I'm opposed.
Okay,
One.
okay. There's one no vote, the motion passes.
First reading, ordinance number 22012.
Item number 3, please.
There are several parts to this request. It applies to two different properties. The first one is to annex and zone a parcel, 0.68 acres. And the second is to rezone an adjacent parcel that's already in the town zone to R1 to AB. Both properties are requesting AB, area-wide business district.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve item 3 and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 22013.
Next.
So as I mentioned, the first property.
Move to approve items 4 and 5.
Second.
We have a motion to approve items 4 and 5. Do we have a second? Oh, you did? You just said it. I'm sorry. Do we have any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, items 4 and 5 are approved unanimously on first reading.
First reading of ordinances number 22014 and 22015.
Okay.
Item
Moving right
6.
along. Yes, sir. So number 6 is an ordinance to amend the development agreement for Carolina Park. And number 7 is an ordinance to amend the planned development district ordinance. The planned development ordinance is an attachment to the development agreement. So anytime there's an amendment to the planned development, you have to have an amendment to your development agreement when it comes to Carolina Park. It's how they were originally adopted. So the request applies to, of course, Carolina Park. This is the entire development. Specifically, there's an exhibit that is part of the planned development, which is also an exhibit to the development agreement. And that is the access management plan that was put in place when this was first adopted in 2011. And this was before all of the uses along Highway 17 were really figured out, decided, developed. And so the whole point of the access management plan was really to limit the number of access points. And so this is what we have now as far as what's approved for access points. What was originally approved looks like this. And the request before you is to move egress point F, which was originally approved in this location, which is next to Faison Road where the CVS is now located.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is this for item 6 or 6 and 7, Mr. Iacofano?
I believe it's 6 and 7 together.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 6 and 7.
Okay.
All right, and the second. Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if you were to look at the access available to this property, there is access to the rear. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there is access to the rear. When this whole neighborhood was developed, there was opportunities to keep major access off Highway 17. I'm not opposed to this request, but I am going to make a suggestion that there be requirements that the developer make sure that all of the vehicles that are going to go here stay out of the zone in front that is supposed to be planted and landscaped. There's a buffer zone here, the same buffer zone that was required for the current business that's being transferred to this location. It took 2 years to get the vehicles out of the buffer area and off, and just happens to coincide with this request. So I'm going to make that as an amendment to the motion that there is a requirement to adhere to the buffer yard requirements on this development as it occurs.
All right, so this is first reading, and the motion is to approve.
Correct, sir. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So F does not exist, correct?
F does exist right here. It's egress only.
Okay, right.
The request before you is to move it right there.
Okay.
And to make it an ingress and egress. And as Mr. Chapman is pointing out, his condition is that there would be no left turn in the future
Right,
at
but
that point.
I was at committee and I believe commission, this was discussed. It's just a right in and right out, correct?
Correct.
It's just a right in, right out. We're not going to go up the middle
Right.
we're not cutting into that middle of 17.
No, sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
and they're not adding are they adding a turn lane? It's just a direct right turn in, correct?
Just a right in, right out.
Okay.
And the road Mr. Chapman was talking about is back here, and so they would have access to that road as well.
And then this one over here is disappearing altogether in between A and B?
Correct.
Okay, so we're just
So
swapping
there will
one
be
for the
no
other.
overall increase in access points, just a movement of location.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, the motion is to approve items 6 and 7. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I have
Mr.
one
Rambo,
quick
sir.
question. So the egress that's being moved is not currently there.
That's right.
So does the same person who owns this property and is requesting this own that property? Or are we literally taking someone else's property rights to have an egress from them and giving it to somebody else?
The answer is yes, but because this is a development agreement, the developer signed off on this, and so the owner of that property is aware, as is the developer, that there will not be any future access at that location, and that was acceptable.
And they, okay, so they agreed to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
All right, all in favor of the motion to approve items 6 and 7, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading ordinance numbers 22016 and 22017.
Item 8, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not next. Sorry. I was trying to pass it off to Mr. Patrick. Too early. So these are some amendments to the Old Village Historic District. Just to preface this by saying, when it first went for public hearing into the Planning Commission, this very first amendment was recommended and supported by the Historic District Preservation Commission. And so staff person to the commission drafted that ordinance. When it went to Planning Commission, this first amendment right here, which is to limit accessory structure locations, was recommended for denial, and committee also recommended denial for that particular section. The rest of the amendments were basically to clean up text. The staff was proposing to eliminate the requirement that talks about public right-of-way, because SCDOT no longer issues an encroachment permit to private property owners, so it was not necessary. The second one was to add language talking about the Old Village Builder's Guide. The third is to clarify what a certificate of appropriateness means. It does not mean that you get stormwater approval. It doesn't mean you get approval of removal of trees. That falls under the Board of Zoning Appeals or the appropriate staff. And then it also, number 7 here, it added in a reference to section 156034, which is our fines and penalties. And then next, she wanted to clarify that preliminary applications do not mean you are approved preliminarily, and that you still have to apply for final approval. And then it also talked about, down here, last but not least, was the COA application, vegetative landscaping, except regarding living fences. And as I mentioned, these are all supported by the commission, the Planning Commission and committee, except for the very first one, which we have removed from our draft ordinance. And just to let you know what that was, there's a specific provision in the Old Village Historic District ordinance that says you can't place a detached accessory structure in your side yard or your front yard. This was not necessarily being utilized, this ordinance, and there had been some exceptions to it, and so the commission thought that we should just get rid of this ordinance. They felt like it was covered under another section in our zoning ordinance. The commission disagreed with that. They felt like this was a very important part of the Old Village guidelines, that it would set a precedent and really change the fabric. And so based on that, commission and committee recommended denial of this first ordinance section. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope I haven't confused you.
So the parts that were recommended denied, it has been amended. So what we would be voting on if the motion is to approve is the amended version. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You'd be voting on the portion that came out of Planning Commission.
Right.
If the council wished, if it makes it to second reading or final reading, and council wished to add it back in some form, then that would be the appropriate time to do it.
Okay. Do we have a motion, please?
I have a question, just real quick.
Sure.
Okay, am I allowed to ask a question or to wait for
But
a
let me
motion?
We
move
should
to
have a
approve.
motion.
Let me
Motion to
move to
approve?
approve.
All right.
Second.
All right. Yes, sir.
Sorry. So I was at the Planning Commission. You did not put the structures with the side access then, is that correct? Or the side are
Correct.
not in that? Because that was.
They're
okay.
not in the draft ordinance, but they were part of the public hearing and they were presented to the commission. But the
Okay.
commission recommended denial of that
Yes.
ordinance amendment.
Okay, and it's
That's
not
correct.
in here. All right, thank you.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 22018.
All right, item number 9, please.
All right, this next ordinance amendment actually has two parts. The first part was introduced by our town engineer. It's more procedural. It has to do with when you record your vision corridor. So if you have a critical line buffer on your plat and you're allowed to clear 33%, it's called your vision corridor. The way our ordinance is written at this point, it says, when you go to do final plat, you have to show your vision corridor platted on that final plat. What happens is the developer is deciding where the vision corridor is. The property is sold off. The property owner comes in, submits for a building permit. They put their house plans together and they say, well, wait a second, we don't want our vision corridor there, we want it here. So we end up with an entire buffer cleared. And so this is a procedural cleanup to say the developer is not choosing at final plat where the vision corridor is. It will happen during the building permit process by the property owner or the builder, and then it will get recorded at that point. And so that's what this does. It changes the procedurally when the vision corridor is platted. The second part of this, while we were in here making this change to this ordinance, we wanted to add a section that would be applicable to all of our buffer areas. As we continue to work on Mount Pleasant Way, we wanted to put a provision here that basically says, if we are moving forward with an improvement that is associated with the Mount Pleasant Way, and as is indicated in its master plan, then we are then it gives us the ability to take through design review board and design review team the ability to put that trail, or the Mount Pleasant Way trail, that section, in a buffer based on certain criteria. So it would be reviewed in the context of meandering around historic trees, and if it displaces any of the buffer, then we would replant that in other sections. And so this was really just, while we were in here, we wanted to accommodate the Mount Pleasant Way as we move forward with those improvements.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 22019.
Item 10, please note, is a discussion-only item regarding a consideration to amend a zoning code section that has to do with off-street parking requirements.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am?
May I?
Yes, you may.
So the planning committee asked for this to be on the agenda because we have been looking at this for months. And so the concern has been that at certain locations in town, businesses are starting to charge for their parking. And because they're charging for their parking, the question is does that parking still count as the required parking for the town? And what can we do to help encourage people to either not charge for parking, or do we charge for parking, but then it has to be reimbursed if they're a customer? And then there was the question of, do we even want to go this deep into something that is this issue? Do we want to do something so that it's prospective for, and what we would do would only be prospective for the future. We would not be able to be retroactive to the businesses that have already converted their parking to paid parking. Is that correct, Mr. Beckley?
Mostly, ma'am. I just want to clarify that,
Oh, sure.
that we could go retrospective if it's already happening, unless it's a vested right and approved parking plan from the town. So just to make that distinction.
Oh, sorry, yes. And so the committee was sort of not at an impasse, but just spinning our wheels a little bit as far as whether or not we wanted to pursue this, to continue to pursue this. And so we wanted to bring it to full council just for an open discussion to get, there's only 4 of us, to get a feel for the rest of council on their thoughts on this parking issue. Because we have heard significant complaints from citizens about having to pay, $20 to park, but you're supposed to get reimbursed if that, and then the difficulty of the apps and getting the parking system to work and everything, and worried about getting ticketed and towed. So just would love to hear your feedback so that we, at our next committee meeting, if we continue with this, that we kind of have some guidance from council.
Yes, sir.
So what I understood this to be kind of pointed towards a little bit was the parking being charged at Water's Edge, which they get reimbursed. So I don't believe that they are trying to charge for parking in their spaces. I believe they're trying to reserve their spaces for their customers. And then when you go in, because this got brought up about the app being used, when you go in, you're reimbursed on the app. And I think that's a right as a business owner to try to preserve their parking spaces. Down at Shem Creek, that's a beautiful walkway, and a lot of people want to park there. And as a business, how are you going to sustain and keep that parking available? As far as significant complaints, I haven't seen anybody come up and discuss in the 2 minutes, nor have I seen one email come across on that. To me, I think this is getting a little bit. I think we're looking at the grain of sand and we should be looking at the beach. To me, this is too granular, and I don't personally think it's out of control right now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I had the same issue with the app myself. I went inside and they gladly helped me with it, so I can see where people are having issues. One of the things that bothers me a little bit is that I noticed that people are now parking over at our park over there, so that the residents who want to go down to the boardwalk don't have a place to park. And if they park over there in Water's Edge's parking place, they risk getting towed, and because they don't go inside and shop and eat. So I think that's something that we need to look at, because certainly if that park is open to our residents, we shouldn't have workers who are working over in those restaurants, or people who are going to eat in those restaurants parking at our parking facility at our park area. So I think we need to look at doing something there to keep that space open for our citizens who want to enjoy our public walkways.
Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Councilmember Santos had problems as well going in with his phone. I had problems with my phone. Other members of my family with different phones had problems. The app does not work for all phones, leaving the point that they don't have the spaces like they're supposed to have for their customers immediately going in. And it's driving away, which is their problem. I understand that. And they're not the only business. There are several others that have put in this program at their restaurants. And anyone can park there and pay the $20 and go out on a raft, go out on a paddleboard, go out and do anything else. So you don't have to go in to park. You can pay $20. So the spaces that the restaurant is supposed to have available for their customers by ordinance are not always available. And that's the problem.
Mayor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo, and then Ms. Corley.
Yeah, thank you. I think what we have been discussing is that the restaurants have the spaces. It's just other people are using them for other purposes. And how are we going to ask those business owners to sit out there and monitor that parking? I just think that that is an undue sort of ask. And maybe they need to bump up from $20 to $80 an hour, and then, and then make sure that those customers are going in to eat, and then they're getting that ticket validated. I'm sure those restaurants, did they help you when you had a problem with the app?
They didn't help me. I had to go find somebody.
Right.
And then they had to bring somebody else out to authorize it. So there was somebody who was maybe wanted to, but they didn't
know how. I just think it's organic, and those restaurant owners would much rather have 4 people sitting at a table than to get $20 for parking. But and again, organically, you're gonna go where there's parking. I personally will not go somewhere where I'm gonna have to fool with parking. So I just think we're getting too much, too in the weeds with this.
All right, Mr. Rambo.
Okay, so I think I hear Mr. Santos's point on the public works and that sort of thing, but I think what this ordinance is talking about is private property and private businesses. And if someone doesn't want to fool with the app or doesn't want to mess with it, then go to a restaurant that doesn't have that, which the vast majority of restaurants in town have open parking lots, and there's no app. There's only one area of town where this is an issue. And you, as a citizen, have a right to not visit that business if you don't like the way they do business. I mean, we're going to prevent somebody from charging for parking in their private property? I mean, are we going to start regulating how much every business charges for different goods and services? I mean, it seems kind of crazy to me. It seems like we're breaking a mountain out of a molehill, and people have the right to, if they don't like how a business operates, then they should go to another business.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I feel like this is a case of people wanting to pick their battles, and they feel like this isn't an important enough one to deal with. But I feel like we have ordinances for a reason, and we have to enforce our ordinances. So the question is this preventing our ordinance of required parking from being enforced? Is there anything in the ordinance, I would ask Mr. Pagliarini, about, we have required spaces. Does anything say it has to be free? I mean, the language states that spaces have to be available for the customers, right?
That's correct, ma'am. There is no current language related to charging or not charging. Yes, ma'am.
Right. I know some people say it's a burden for them to have to monitor the parking lot, but what have they always done? They've always had to do that. And they'll still have to monitor it if they want to tow the people that don't use the app. I mean, I could pull in there and go kayaking and, not even use the app. So somehow they're going to be monitoring it. So we just wanted input to see what people thought could be a solution. I feel that at the very least, they should be documenting their parking spaces and letting the public know that the spaces are only for their business. If they're putting up a sign that discusses the app, they should also have to say parking for such and such business only, because we have an ordinance that requires parking. So I just feel we shouldn't be just ignoring that ordinance when it's been a very important point on many projects.
Councilman Ritchie.
Just an observation. So where the ordinance is about spaces required for the restaurant, they have to have so many. I don't think that changes. I think they still have the spaces for that restaurant. Now, it's up to the restaurant to monitor who's parking them. The same number of cars are going to park whether they're going to eat at the restaurant or if they're going out on the water, like Councilman Chapman was saying. So I think those spots are still going to be spots regardless for that restaurant. The restaurant will be losing money, actually, because they're not going in to eat. So just an observation. I don't think we're I think in the spirit of the ordinance, they still have those spaces for that restaurant.
Let me ask the chair, are y'all going to sort of gauge the input from tonight to decide whether it's on your committee agenda next month? Or are you looking for?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
basically it, to kind of get a sense from the rest of council, their thoughts on it. It seems that there are those on council who feel this is a non-issue that we should set aside, and then there's those who feel that it's in violation of the spirit of our ordinance, which is if you have to have 10 parking spaces and you're charging $20 a spot, is that truly an offering of a parking space to a customer? Like if I had to pay $10 to go to Publix, but then I think Mr. Rambo's point is a good one, is Publix started charging $10 to park there, I would go to Harris Teeter. So, but I do think that the problem becomes is when people, and I'll admit I've done it because of I've gone to go on a boat and I've just parked there and paid the $20 because to me I'm renting the space, right? Like I'm renting the space because it's $20 for the space now. It says here's the business, you pay the $20, you rent the space, and I know tons of people are probably doing that. And how many spaces does that leave for the actual customers of the restaurant? Yeah, Ms. Hyatt is like 0. I mean, I don't know if it leaves 0, but I think I think this is a way for restaurants to recoup dollars. Is instead of having people park in their space for free and go on the boats, they're at least getting the $20, right? And so in a time where businesses are struggling, we're still coming out of the pandemic, is it, do we even want to get into this? So and regulate a business so closely when it comes to their parking. So.
One more.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
You have the floor.
So just real quick, I do like the idea, Ms. Hyatt, on, putting the sticker on the thing, right? Put a Water's Edge parking sticker on it. I mean, if we want an example of somebody who kept their parking lot clear, we could go to Ronnie Bowles. RB's kept it best. But, again, I do think that Water's Edge, if that's what we're discussing here, is trying their best to keep their parking for the customers. It's free parking to the customers. And in a time right now where it's very difficult to get employees, it's probably very difficult to put an employee out there to monitor and tow. And when you're towing those cars, you become known as you get kind of a, I'm trying to think of a word that I shouldn't be saying, but you get kind of a black eye in the community as being somebody that tows all these cars all the time, and you're only doing what you're supposed to do. I think they're doing a great job of trying to keep their spaces open, and they are giving free parking to their customers. Go in and get the free parking when you eat.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to send it back to committee.
Okay.
A second.
It's discussion only, but we can make note that it will go to the committee and it'll be there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes, you can. It'll be on committee next month.
Okay.
Thank you, Howard,
Okay.
for asking.
Well, I thought we were going to decide. So.
Yeah. All right, so that wraps up item 10. This moves us to section B, old business. All of these are final reading, please remember. And so we are at item 1, please. Boulevard overlay.
Yes, sir, and as you mentioned, this is final reading, but staff does have an amended ordinance. When this came to you for first reading, we basically showed you the repeal of the boulevard overlay, and what that looks like is 156318 getting totally stricken, and so that's all we had in draft form. What we are going to present tonight, and Michael Robertson, one of our division chiefs, will come up and speak briefly as to the details. What we have tonight for you is the amended ordinance showing these other sections and how those design guidelines both have changed and will be incorporated into these other zoning code sections. And with that, I will turn it over to Michael Quick.
Good evening. My name is Michael Robertson. I'm the division chief in our planning department. Worked with this for a number of years. Basically, there were 2 options for how to handle this. One was just to maintain the overlay district for the design standards only. That was not the message that we received from the committee. They wanted this to go into various parts of the code, and so that's what was done. Just the design guidelines will be moved to the various parts of the code where they are applicable. Therefore, one of the primary goals was to maintain activity zones along Coleman Boulevard, Johnny Dodds Boulevards, where you had the wider sidewalks, the tree plantings without the shrubs and understories that block the view to the businesses, but still allow for some limited outdoor dining in places, people to walk and shop in a much more of a downtown village fashion, similar to what you would see on Pitt Street, but taking that and applying it across the larger boulevards. So that's really what has been done here. So that will now be housed under our buffer yards, our special buffer yards. For those architectural standards, we're creating a new portion under the Commercial Design Review Board guidelines that would hold those architectural standards. And some of those, as we go forward, as you can see here, there will be under the Commercial Design Review Overlay District, a new I for special design districts. That will directly correlate to our buffer yard ordinance, which has I special buffer yards, so that these things can work together and be simpler. One of the other, and these will be called the Village Scale Pedestrian Development Standards. A number of other ideas. These will be broken down very specifically by boulevard to explain how they work. They've been simplified significantly. This no longer applies to side streets, just to the boulevards. So we won't have that bleed over into neighborhoods. Also, one of the larger portions will be maintaining the open space and parks requirements for the pocket parks along the boulevards for frontage and things like that for buildings. The design standards for the sidewalks will remain. The design standards for the pocket parks will remain. There are some changes to the commercial design review guidelines that were essentially repealing changes that were made at the time the original urban corridor and then subsequently the boulevard overlay district was adopted, and that is to require pitched roofs. It will no longer allow flat roofs. They'll be allowed as sort of an accessory or to appear as an addition to a building so that you could have mechanical equipment on the rooftops and you won't have those around the ground for those large numbers of AC units, kitchen hoods, things like that that are necessary for commercial buildings. So those are highlighted here where those changes would be, and you can see the flat roofs shall be prohibited will be the sentence. And then we also in a different section require that the pitched roofs are required. Also, the primary building materials, we allowed brick and stucco to come in under the urban corridor. That primary building material will be wood. That doesn't mean you couldn't have brick. It would just be limited to your base. So our buildings would appear more in that low country, rural vernacular detail, which are wooden buildings and smaller scale. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. First, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion to approve item B1. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Rambo.
Why are we not allowing flat roofs? I mean, there's some buildings I can think of in town that have flat roofs that are not attractive, and then there's some very attractive buildings that have flat roofs.
The goal, the message that we heard through all of our meetings with Planning Commission and with Planning Committee was they wanted a return to that low country, rural vernacular requirement. And that was the requirement for decades, so that we had buildings like the Publix on Ben Sawyer Boulevard that has a pitched roof versus some of the newer grocery stores that have primarily flat roofs. So the goal was to get back to a much more rural vernacular theme by eliminating the flat roof requirement for any portion of a building that came in as a result of the urban corridor overlay district. Flat roofs primarily were only limited to these smaller additions to appear as additions, and there may be a photograph in that that would show how that works. So you can see on the top photographs on the right-hand side how you have pitched roofs with flat roof sections towards the back, or pitched roofs that create screening areas for mechanical equipment. That is what we would return to, that requirement. So you have flat roof areas for your buildings.
Yeah.
You just couldn't have a completely flat roof building, just sort of a big box like you would typically see with a Walmart or something like that. And the idea was to break the scale back down so that there was much more of a small town feel that they used to be emphasized in town through the design standards.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I have just a question procedurally. Has this that you're bringing to us now, was amendments made in between first and second reading, is that correct? Or is that?
These are the formats.
The formats, okay, so I guess, Mr. Pagliarini, do we need to have a motion to adopt the amended language on top of the motion to approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, I'm so moved.
Okay.
Second.
And this motion is to adopt the amendments.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Sorry, the amendments are what was talked about here?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, I do have one final question.
Sure.
I just feel like we're getting so into the weeds here. Isn't the purpose of a design review board to kind of sort this out and, I don't know.
They do, and
Yeah.
that will not change also because there is a clause at the very beginning of the commercial design review standards that the board has the authority to amend or apply these standards as they see fit. So they couldn't just throw them out and say, we're going to allow flat roofs. What they should do if there were a specific reason why they needed to approve a flat roof, and I'll just make up an example, if you were building an addition onto a building, say at Town Center, where you already have very large flat roofs, they could clarify and place the condition on there or the explanation that they're allowing this change to the ordinance, which they have the authority to do, based on the flat roof building that they're adding on to. So they would have that ability. They wouldn't have to suddenly pop a little pitched roof across a small section of an addition to a very large building.
Okay.
So just, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so as we've discussed, this would remove the overlay and the properties would be returning to the underlying zoning.
Correct. So that is another big change that will happen as a result of the overlay. The original overlay essentially rezoned, and there have been amendments to this through the years, but the original overlay basically rezoned all the properties AB for the most part. There was a change years ago that basically stated if you had an underlying residential zoning district, you still had to use the residential standards. This will be the culmination of that initial change. So it will basically say the underlying zoning district is what controls. These design standards will simply be that. They'll be essentially no different than the buffer yards that would apply or the standard design regulations that apply throughout town consistently.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And the reason we asked Planning Department to make sure we weren't missing anything by simply doing away with the overlay district was because there were issues that we wanted kept along the boulevards. But unless we had these amendments all made that we're voting on, we would have lost a lot of the, I guess, the low country architecture that was required as part of being in the overlay district. Now, by taking the overlay district out, by these extra amendments, we're keeping all of the good parts that was in the overlay district, but taking the bad part, which was multiple use possibilities on the same piece of property, simply because it was in the overlay district. And that's why we wanted it more simple of what the zoning was for each property along the boulevards.
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
I would just, before we vote, I would like to thank the Planning Department. This was a very complicated, complex endeavor to dismantle something that has been in place, like the Boulevard Overlay District, and to keep the good stuff, as Mr. Chapman was saying, and incorporating that into our existing code. So thank you so much for all your hard work on this.
Mr.
So I
Eichenfeld.
just want to clarify, I've looked over all this and been in the planning committee and all that, but, so we're allowing a flat roof behind a pitched roof, so we can.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the way the ordinance was originally written.
Okay.
It was amended to just allow flat roofs, period,
Okay.
in the urban corridor.
Excellent.
So we're just sort of going back to the way it used to be.
The pictures look great, thank you. And two questions then. and this is the most important part. Is it easier for staff, and is it more transparent to the public? And that's the most important part of besides keeping the feel, but.
You'd have to know where to look, but that's the case with anything in the zoning ordinance. So at this point, it's not something you could hand someone on the street and it's not a checklist. And that's not the way our zoning ordinance is written, although we are hoping to get to that with the zoning amendments you'll see coming up in the new year. But I think it will be simpler because it really focuses down and treats this activity zone like a buffer, simplifies a lot of the requirements that are in it, gets rid of a lot of the items that came about with other parts of the overlay and what you could do on various parcels. So I think ultimately it will be much, much simpler for the property owners to understand what they can and can't do. And I think it will also benefit them because in some places where we have standard buffers, obviously as you go down Coleman Boulevard or Johnny Dodge, now you can see the business. And that's a very important component of being a business owner, that you can be seen and your products can be seen.
Thank you.
All right, so the first vote is on to approve and adopt the amendments. So all in favor of the motion to approve the amendments, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendments are approved unanimously. Now the motion is to approve the ordinance as amended with the amendments you just voted to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Final reading, ordinance number 22004.
Item number 2, please.
All right. This last one is final reading on an ordinance to amend the principal use conditions and the principal use table regarding hotels and boutique hotels. Just a quick reminder, our comprehensive plan recommends these uses for community scale, which include boutique hotels, town scale. A full-size hotel is more important. A full-size hotel is more appropriate. What received first reading, I'm going to go over that first, and then I'll explain a few proposed amendments that came out of Planning Committee. So what received first reading last month was to everywhere where a hotel or a boutique hotel is a permitted use, it would now be conditional. And those conditions would be based on these different areas. So if you have a boutique hotel, first reading said you can have it in community scale in these 4 areas that are community scale, and plus the waterfront district, Highway 41, and then anywhere where you had a town scale. And then a regular sized hotel would be allowed anywhere where you had a designation as town scale and Patriots Point, which is the waterfront district. And this is the map that we went by. Last month, I showed you these geographic boundaries that came out of the comprehensive plan process that the forum worked on. Even though these maps weren't attached to the comp plan, these were created as part of that process. And so we went through these different areas, and what you have here, these are the town scale areas. So the dark red is the actual geographic boundary, and then the red here would be kind of like the hub or the redevelopment center. So we had first reading on these, and then we talked about the appropriate placement for a boutique hotel, which was limited to these areas here: Seaside Farms, Bell Hall, Sea Island, Highway 1741, and then up at the Wando. And then we provided these same geographic boundaries. So at the last town council meeting, there was first reading. At that time, this item was sent back to committee for further public input. And then there was a public hearing held tonight at the beginning of this agenda. And so at the committee meeting, these amendments were recommended to come back to council prior to final reading. One was to change the language to refer to these areas as hubs. The second was to include hotel uses for waterfront gateways, add additional community scale hubs. There were 5 shown. There's 8 in the comprehensive plan on the map, so we have a map here showing all 8 of those, and then to clearly define the boundaries of those hubs. And so this is the first slide showing that first amendment. What we did was say, if you have a boutique hotel or a hotel and you're in a community scale area in the Bell Hall hub, the Seaside hub, the Sea Island hub, or the Highway 41 hub, you can do it. If you're in the waterfront district on 41, and then also if you're appropriate in town scale for a full-size hotel, then obviously you're going to be appropriate for a boutique hotel, which is, again, 25 rooms and less. And then this second part didn't change. It was a hotel is appropriate in the Patriots Point. I'm sorry, it did change. Patriots Point and Highway 41 waterfront district. And so that was one of the changes that came out of committee. They said that Highway 41 waterfront district, that should be an appropriate area for not only a boutique hotel, but a full-size hotel. So this is a map showing the entire town, all the areas. And I was asked to show this so that we could clearly see all of the hubs and town scale areas on the map at one time. And then I've broken those down into each section. So here we have the outline in blue are the select community hubs that were part of the condition that if you are in this area, it is appropriate for you to have a boutique hotel. Of course, if you have the correct zoning. So the first one was Patriots Point. Here, and I'll zoom in on these in just a minute. This one here is the Sea Island area. This one, small one here, is Oyster Park area. We have this area right here on Johnny Dodds Boulevard, which is Shellmore Village. We have Seaside Farms right here. And I'm just going to point all these out, and then I'll go. Here's Belt Hall, 526. Here we have 6 Mile, the Harris Teeter out there at the 6 Mile Village. Here we have the Highway 41, Highway 17 hub. This is Carolina Park, which is a town scale area. And this one here is the waterfront district for Highway 41.
And those are community scale?
So they are not all community scale. This one here is waterfront district. This one here is waterfront district Patriots Point. So when we say hub, I think some language is being conflated between commercial, waterfront, and hub. So even though we've said necessarily called it a hub, that doesn't mean that it's designated as a hub in the comp plan. But for clarity in our language for the conditional use, that's what we're calling it. So let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see. So we have right now, as amended, as proposed, coming out of committee as an amendment, we would have a hotel or a boutique hotel would be appropriate in the Patriots Point waterfront district. And this is one of the extra areas that Ms. Whitley asked to show. On the original first reading, there were 5 hubs, community scale commercial hubs shown. Ms. Whitley asked that we show all 8 of them. This is one of them. Shellmore Village is one. 6 Mile is one. We already had the Seaside Farms. And then this area was added.
Are we allowed to ask questions now? Or?
I'll move for approval, Mayor.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
And do we have a second?
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. We're in discussion.
I have an amendment.
Okay. All right.
First. And the amendment is to accept the waterfront marine district at the end of 41 for all hotels, and obviously boutique hotels, and to combine the hub of Sea Island Shopping Center with the area known as Oyster Park, which is currently a PUD, and take that to the electrical substation and no further. And that's my amendment to the original motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're now discussing Mr. Chapman's amendment. Anyone? Yes, sir. Mr.
Are
Microphone.
we allowed to, David, are we allowed to just start moving these things? Like, I mean, doesn't this have to go back to committee at this point with just kind of saying I mean, are we drawing property lines? Are we discussing what tax map codes and what property lines just got moved in here? I mean, don't I have to have before I vote on something, don't I have to have the actual property line and boundary to understand instead of, we just drew another circle?
Right. And Mayor, if you excuse me.
Yes, sir,
I have,
please.
just a couple things. The first is that certainly what is still out there, what has not been moved for amendment is the entirety or some form of what came out of planning committee. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. The initial motion to approve was for the, as
this
original.
specific
Right.
amendment.
So we haven't gotten there yet. To answer those specific questions, of course, amendments are in order. And I think what you're asking, Ms. Shacofano, is that specific enough? The amendment proposed by Mr. Chapman, is it specific enough for staff to be able to draw lines, determine specific areas? And
Correct.
I don't want to put the
I mean,
pressure
are
on
we
Michelle, but
saying
that
what the
is the
property lines
question.
are right now?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have them drawn, as we were asked. That was one of the things that came out of committee, is if you could drill down and clearly define all the boundaries of the hubs. And so that's what we have done. If there is an amendment that comes out of tonight that expands something, we can change that on the map, because I anticipate that this draft ordinance and these conditions, we're gonna have maps attached to them so that it's clearly defined and there's no ambiguity. So I do think it's important that if there's an expansion of a boundary that's shown on here, that if that is part of the amendment tonight, we will make that change prior to the ordinance getting signed.
So to clarify, Mr. Chapman's amendment, we're comfortable with the boundaries as Mr. Chapman stated at this time?
Yes.
And if I could just add on my amendment, if other council members want to add anything, I would encourage them to do that. I'm just doing those two locations that were part of what came out at our committee.
Okay. And I would ask, let's do one motion at a time, please.
That was my question.
Yep, one motion at a time. We're on Mr. Chapman's motion to amend. Ms. Hyatt, yes.
I believe you said you had the extra hubs you were going to show us on the map. So I think that's what Mr. Chapman was referring to, is just because it's what, maybe I'm wrong, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but so that council understands, when we discussed at committee that there are 8 hubs.
Yeah.
And we had originally approved 5, but in our first vote, you wanted to add the other 3.
I wanted to make sure that at least these 2
Okay.
get added, but there may be a motion to add 3 more.
The motion right here is only these 2.
Correct.
Highway 41 and Sea Island to Oyster Park. Mr. Acofano, did you want to be recognized?
I guess my question is, so there's that large hub at Sea Island, and then there's Oyster Park. Did we just, maybe I'm not hearing it correctly, did we just ask to combine those 2? That's what I was not understanding. I thought you said to combine the 2 of them.
I want to make sure they both get included.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought you meant to mass them as one, combine them. That's why I didn't understand that.
It really depends on how the planning department figures it's easier to understand. They're both, they're immediately adjacent to each other. So whether they're individually done or they're done in the same vein, if you will, then they're already adjacent to one another.
So are you saying, I see two pieces of property in between the 2 of them. Are you stating that you would like to combine those 2 pieces of property into that zone?
I'm stating to approve those 2 to be added as they're stated in the original plan that came out of committee.
And let me clarify, the motion specifically says the property known as Oyster Park.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said Oyster Point. My apologies. Okay. Well, I thought we were just doing all 8 anyway, but.
We may.
Okay.
This is the motion.
Right. I hear you. Okay.
Any other discussion on Mr. Chapman's motion? All right, are we prepared to vote? Any other questions? All right, all in favor? What's that? Go ahead.
Could you show us the extra 2 hubs that he's adding? You said you have those.
Mr. Chapman mentioned water, if I understood it correctly, he would like a full-size hotel to be appropriate in this waterfront district here. That is not a hub.
No, right, but I
Okay.
meant the the boundary on Oyster Park, and was there another one you added? Or was just those two?
Sea Island.
Which
in
is
there.
already in there. So I think what he was saying, his second amendment was to include this.
Right. I
Which
just
is
didn't know
Oyster
if you had a picture of that for everyone to see the boundary.
Just,
so they would
this is all I
understand.
have. I don't think
Okay.
I can zoom in anymore, but we'll.
Any other discussion? You still have the floor, and then Mr. Iacofano.
And the other thing, I know Ms. Reed had mentioned it, but it's the commercial portions of these hubs, the commercial zonings that would
Community
allow.
scale. Yes, ma'am.
That would allow the hotels. You know, there are hubs on the map that are pretty large, but part of that is residential. So it's the commercial portions within these hubs, which she mentioned, they would be appropriately zoned that would allow hotels. So
Okay.
I just want to make that point.
Mr. Iacofano.
In the spirit of the holy cow, my mind is comprehensive plan, a community scale commercial, that's every bright red piece on here, this is the predominant commercial classification within the town, including retail, office, services, grocery stores, boutique hotels, and restaurant uses. So that's for all community scale commercial. I'm looking at the comprehensive plan, and that is what I'm reading.
Is that hubs or zoning, just for clarity's
I'm
sake?
getting, that's
Okay.
community scale commercial, which on here, community scale commercial is the bright red. So for that definition, I don't know if you have that definition for up here as well, what I just read. I'm just doing the comprehensive plan here, I really, really am. And then, so when I read a community scale hub, which is a very long, so community scale commercial, there it is, that it includes boutique hotels, restaurant uses, all of those, that's bright red on that entire map. Am I wrong, or am I correct?
No, that's correct.
I'm correct, okay. So then when you go to community scale hub, the community scale hub definition says to appropriate land use types for community scale hubs include all the land uses considered appropriate in neighborhood scale hubs plus community scale commercial. See the district maps. So I do think we are getting, and I want to follow the comprehensive plan, I do think we are getting a little confused in the fact that a comprehensive, the comprehensive plan states that within the community scale commercial, that's all the bright red, and then the community scale hubs are supposed to combine the neighborhood scale hub with the community scale hub, creating a marriage of the two, more like a mixed use. So to me, the comprehensive plan says if you like a boutique hotel in the bright red area, you can, but if you really want to be part of this community hub of stores, neighborhood, grocery store, this mixed use idea, that is what I'm reading the comprehensive plan to say.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I want to respond to that.
All right.
Councilmember Iacofano, I think that you ended one of those sentences telling you to see the map in the comp plan, did you not?
For
the community scale hubs.
the community scale hub,
Okay.
yes, of course, see the map.
If
Those
you
are the-
look, sir, on page 5-26, there is a map.
Correct,
I have it with me.
I have it.
And there is a community scale hub on exactly where Oyster Park is and exactly where Sea Island Shopping Center is. Those are the hubs we're talking about. And that's directly from the comprehensive plan.
I'm not arguing the hubs. I agree where the hubs are on the map. I agree with the definition of community scale hub. I do think that we have not, in the spirit of the comprehensive plan, we have not read the definition of what a community scale commercial area is, the community scale commercial, which is bright red here, and if you refer to 7-14, at the top of the page. The community scale commercial allows for moderate concentrations of small to medium scale commercial uses designed to serve a broader community area of approximately a 3-mile radius. This is the predominant commercial classification within the town, including retail, office, services, grocery stores, boutique hotels, and restaurant uses. That's all I'm stating, is that we say a lot about following the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan clearly states that the community scale commercial allows boutique hotels on it in the bright red zones. And I believe we're voting to take that away at this point. And I'm just trying to follow this.
As am I, right here. I call for the question, Mayor.
That would be subject to a vote, if we want to vote. And remember, we're voting on the amendments here. Give me a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, this is Mr. Chapman's amendment. I don't think I need to read it again. It only, it makes sure that 2 areas are included in the hubs. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, so by a vote of 8-1, the amendment is,
Now I'm going to move.
is approved.
I would like to make a motion to amend as well to include all the hubs listed in the comprehensive plan as both towns, like basically the final 2 hubs as recommended by committee that were not mentioned by Mr. Chapman. I would like those to be included as well.
Okay, and may I ask a question? We have a motion and a second. Are we referring to the maps?
Yes, this is the map.
Shown on the maps?
As
Because
shown
I
on
think
the-
that will clear up a lot of ambiguity.
Blue dotted outlines in the dark red, the additional ones there.
And we're talking about which hubs? Community scale?
Community scale. So there are 8 community scale hubs in the comprehensive plan, and I think all 8 should be included.
And this includes what? I want to make sure I got your wording right. Is this just boutique hotels in community scale?
Yes, it's as recommended by committee, as presented by Ms. Reed,
Boutique hotels only?
a community scale.
Okay. Is everybody clear on that motion? Okay, so this would be all of the hubs on the map, community scale, that would allow community,
Just
I'm
adding in
sorry,
those
boutique
final-
scale
Yeah,
hotels.
it'd be adding in those final 2 hubs that were not included in Mr. Chapman's.
But your motion is for it to be all the hubs. I just want to make sure our motion is clear.
No, my motion is to add the two final hubs that were not included.
I don't know which 2 they are, so.
I got it. She's talking about right here and on Johnny Dot, Shellmore Village. And Mr. Chapman already added Oyster Park.
Right.
And then 6 Mile. So that would be the 2 extra, 3 total, 5 to 8.
Just want to be clear that everybody knows which hubs are being made in this motion. Have we clearly stated your motion and the second?
Is there a second? Oh, Mr.
Yes, there is motion and second. We are in discussion. You have the floor.
Yeah, I think that in order to be in line with the comprehensive plan, they contemplate the hotel usage in commercial scale and town scale hubs, and so I think we need, so that making sure all 8 are included is in line with that.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Ms. Hyatt?
In the beginning, we talked about using new language where we named the hubs in the beginning. So I wanted to make sure we got the names of these hubs correct in the way they were referred to. Because I believe Oyster Park was referenced as like called the Ben Sawyer Hub.
Right.
And then the one at Ion, is that called the Shellmore Hub? Or, I mean,
I'll
do they have
reference-
names like the
They
other ones?
probably do. We'll reference back to the comp plan and use that same terminology. though.
Because we had already
Yes, ma'am.
suggested that we go with that.
Yep.
Okay, and follow that, so that we're very specific about referencing the maps. Those names go along with the maps and the boundaries.
Okay, everyone knows that motion. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion that would add those 2 hubs, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so that motion passes unanimous. Are there any other amendments? Yes, sir, Mr. Rambo.
I do have one amendment. I know I talked a lot at the last meeting about, we do have a number of hotels in Mount Pleasant now, and between 29464 has all of them except one, which is across the street from Sneed Farm Country Club, which I would almost more consider the middle of town nowadays. And there are no hotels past that. And there are hotels certainly provide, your typical suburban hotels certainly provide services to people in the area. A good example would be Shipyard Park, who hosts tournaments every weekend, and there's not a hotel anywhere near there. Family that's staying in town, if your house isn't big enough, they stay in a hotel. There's certain services that are provided. So with that in mind, and after talking with some hotel folks and examining, areas that might be good for it, I would like to make a motion to amend to add the Walmart shopping center on the north end of town. I think it's formerly known as the Oakland PD area, as full-size hotels be allowed in that area. It's an area that is a almost fully developed shopping center with tons of stores and restaurants and things, and no residential really anywhere very close to it. So it really would be a good fit. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Let me ask Mr. Pagliarini, does this involve a amendment to the comprehensive plan, which is a totally different question and requires a totally different vote?
No, sir, it doesn't.
Okay, just making sure. So this adds, and let's make sure this is the Walmart shops at Oakland.
Yes, sir.
And North Mount Pleasant, since we have two, just to be very clear. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Whitley.
Ms. Reed, is that a PD?
It is, and Mr. Rambo and I had this conversation. It's a planned development, which if a planned development sets its own standards and permitted uses, then that supersedes. This particular planned development, it has economic development designations and area-wide business designations, but what it does is refer back to our town code. So because of that, if I looked at that planned development ordinance and it referred me back to AB for an AB property, then I would be subject to the conditions that are being adopted tonight. And so it would not be allowed there. Many of our PDs do allow as a permitted use a hotel, so this would not be applicable to them. Any of these changes tonight would not necessarily be applicable if the PD clearly spells out a hotel as a permitted use. The Oakland PD does not. It refers to our AB zoning.
Okay.
Would the addition of this I guess my question is similar about the comprehensive plan. Like, is this in keeping with the comprehensive plan's future land use for that area?
Well, so on the comprehensive plan, it's red, so it's community scale commercial, which says that a boutique hotel is appropriate. And I think Mr. Rambo's talking about a full-size hotel.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rambo?
I would just say, I hear your point on that, I really do. I think that when this plan was developed, obviously a lot of time and effort went into it, but I don't think they ever really sat down in a room and said, let's examine all of the hotels that we have in Mount Pleasant, and then let's create this plan, and let's create these hotel zones that are specific to certain areas that may or may not be good. I think it's a good overall general guide, but I don't know that they really got into that level of detail in every aspect of every area of town. And I feel like the spirit of these hotel zones is to kind of stop the proliferation of hotels on the southern end of town, but not necessarily just cut off any hotels from happening on the northern end of town.
Ms. Shantos?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Rambo. They have a lot of tournaments up there, and he's right, really, that Holiday Inn Express is the only hotel within that area. You can go certain times of the evening, and you'll see kids with their uniforms on that came from Denton's Park, all packed in there. And certainly, I think we need some more out there, at least one or two more out there, where we can service. The parents won't have to drive so far to go out to our recreation areas and Denton's Park. So certainly there should be some out there.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hyatt?
Would the PD be allowed to request an amendment to allow a hotel?
They could.
So They
So-
could just, if one came along and they wanted to build one, then they could just request an amendment?
Yeah, they could amend the PD to say, AB uses plus a hotel or however, but they could do that, and that would be a town council decision to amend the PD.
Okay, so it could be addressed at that time without having to
It could.
do it? Okay. The other question I have is, do we know why that wasn't made a hub? I wondered when we discussed it, there was kind of a reference to, well, there's going to be town scale stuff up there. There wasn't anything specific, so I always wondered why. But I guess it's just community scale
Yeah, it
in
is.
nature. Okay, so it could be corrected by a request for them to do it themselves without us having to do it.
I do want to ask one question before we go to Mr. Chapman. Regardless, even though this amendment said it would allow it, it's still a conditional use. That's what this whole zoning ordinance says. So it doesn't mean it would be automatic. Correct. It would be conditional, and that would have to come to council for a vote or to where conditional use is decided.
Conditional uses are approved at the staff level, and these conditions that are proposed tonight for final reading are very specific. So the conditions so far would not allow a hotel or a boutique hotel in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is the largest commercial area
In the northern.
in the northern end of town, I would think, by square footage. Ms. Chapman, you have the floor.
Just to add to the point about needing hotels, especially for the area north of North 41, that's why I made my amendment. That's why my amendment includes in the waterfront district of waterfront marine district that we be allowed to have regular hotels in that district. So while there aren't any now, it's already been taken care of with my amendment if the whole ordinance passes. And as far as what Mr. Rambo's amendment suggests can be handled without making any changes to the 8 specific locations that were recommended in the comp plan. That's my only concern. Right now, we've got all 8 that are recommended in the comp plan included. If we go to something else, we're getting outside that. And the answer about you don't think the comprehensive plan or the people working on it looked at every specific location is probably true. But that's what we are now doing. We've taken the comprehensive plan, past that, and it's now our job to go location by location along the main arteries within the town to decide what should be allowed in there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rambo.
Mr. Chapman, I totally hear your point. Can you scroll back to the land, the waterfront gateway with Highway 41, the Highway 41 waterfront gateway? So while in theory I think that that's great, most of that is Shipyard Park and the Republic Tract, which neither one is actually annexed into the town of Mount Pleasant, and it is unclear whether any of them will do. One of them will probably end up being a PD at some point, but none of that property is actually even in the town of Mount Pleasant. So I think that's a good point, but as for getting something anytime soon, any of these services on the northern end of town anytime soon, none of that's in the town.
Yes, sir, Ms. Santos.
Just one more thing, that's the laydown area for when they build or add on to 526. That property is going to be used for a number of things before it'll even be available to us, if it's ever annexed into the town.
All right, Ms. Corley?
I agree with Mr. Santos, and honestly, location, I think that's still way, way far away. I think that location at that Walmart shopping center, that need is definitely there, would be welcomed.
Yes, sir, Mr. Iacofano.
Again, this is a lot of discussion for 2 months with this. Obviously, it's at planning committee for a little bit, but, you know, we have a noise ordinance that's going 6 months long. And we're changing zoning and changing lives here with a lot of discussion still happening. I don't understand. I would love for this to go to planning commission, back to planning committee, figure this out, because am I correct in saying that community scale commercial in the comprehensive plan says that boutique hotel could go on that bright red? And that the hubs are a concentration,
Right.
a community, a place for people to come specifically to shop, eat, stay in a boutique hotel. Those are hubs, but I'm just reading the comprehensive plan that everybody else is defending, but ignoring my definition that I'm reading straight from it, because we're just choosing the side of the coin we want to look at. And that definition says that community scale commercial allows for boutique hotels. I've got no skin in the game on what's going up, and I think zoning would help to differentiate that. But if we're going to go with saying that we want to follow the comprehensive plan, I just don't know why this paragraph is being ignored and why we can't come out with a better plan from the planning commission and the committee bringing the Walmart section in. That's an excellent idea. You're right. Who knows how long the Republic track in that other area. There's so much that has been brought out here. I don't understand why we just can't come back with a better definitive plan. I keep interrupting you. Is community scale commercial allow boutique hotels in all the bright red on this map?
In the comprehensive plan, community scale commercial, which on this map is all the brighter red, it says that as part of an appropriate use, a boutique hotel is appropriate. So to answer your question, yes, the comprehensive plan is saying it would be appropriate if the zoning was in place to permit it. That all this red, now that's not to say there's going to be a hotel in all those red areas because most of them are improved with other uses. But you're correct, that's what the comprehensive plan says. A boutique hotel is appropriate in community scale commercial, which are all the red. The hubs and the redevelopment centers are kind of like you said, they're these areas where we intend to do small area plans. It's this mixed use neighborhood. And so, but you're correct in that, yes.
Is there ever any way that this can go, I'm new to, is there ever any way this can go back to planning commission or planning committee? Mr. Pagliarini, I don't know how to, I know it's already moved to approve and we're in second reading. I just don't understand if we could get planning committee to just enter the Walmart thing and all those wonderful.
Well, sir, there's several things that could be done. First, we are currently in discussion on an amendment, a specific amendment, so that would need to be dealt with first. Okay. But of course, council's will, it could be deferred, it could go back. Additional amendments could be made to address any specific issues that any council member has. So, I'm just suggesting that if that's an issue that you would like heard tonight, it could be amended or at least discussed and voted on as well.
And I would just like to respond. I was elected to council in 15, and the only person here longer than me is Mr. Santos. And so when I was a council member, there was a comp plan forum that I believe was 30. Was it 30 people or something about that? We came on, we were new, and we felt the same way, Mr. Iacofano. We wanted more input and more transparency. So the first thing we did was we expanded that from 30 to 40 or 40-something. So we got more public input. We had more public hearings. At one time, we had more attendees and public input at the charrettes for this plan than any public process the town had had. And then when the subject of the hubs came up and we got new council members and all, we extended the whole process by an entire year. And so I feel a little bit of disrespect toward, and I know you don't mean it, but we added a whole extra year to this process and got more public input, and it went through the committees, and we went through a change of the committee chair, at planning, and we added an extra public hearing tonight. So I'm not faulting you for how you feel being a new council member, and I certainly respect that. But this goes back pre the 2017 election, when we got more people and more input and an extra year in the process. So it's our job to make the hard decisions, to make the vote, to vote our conscience and actually implement the plan and not keep talking about it and talking about it. It's been talked about now since, when did the comp plan forum start? In 18 or 19?
I think before that, yeah.
Okay. So it has been years in the making. And it was expanded in every way, including time, including the number of people who represented the public on that, and including our process of not amending, but refining it before we adopted it when we got the rough draft. So I just wanted to put that in. A lot of hard work and a lot of time has been done, and we all wrestle with these decisions. They are very serious, but it's really not for lack of time at this point from the body corporate, if y'all will receive that. Okay, Ms. Santos.
I was just going to say, I see what John's saying. We've already made changes to this already tonight. And so since changes are already being made at this level, I don't have an issue of setting it back for one more month and let the planning committee look at it one more time and look at what the changes we're making, and then come back at the next council meeting and we can go ahead and vote for it. Clearly, he's a council member. He's elected by the people, and he has questions that he wants to ask, and he wants them answered. And I have no issue with going back for at least one more month before we make a decision right now. While you got council members that have questions.
Right. We have an amendment here, Mr. Chapman, and then
Mayor,
we'll
I'll
have to call the vote on that amendment.
I tried to call the vote.
Not on this one.
Well,
that was yours.
All I can say is what you have before you tonight with the amendments came out of committee. We made these suggestions coming out of committee to amend what you saw in first reading. So it takes into account a lot of things that have already been said. So I know we've been discussing it for over 6 months, probably closer to 8, and I think we're ready to move forward with it.
All right, so this vote is on the Rambo amendment. Why don't I get the clerk to call the roll? And a yes vote is to add the Walmart Shopping Center shops at Oakland to allow full-scale hotels. So if you will call the roll.
Mr. Chapman?
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley?
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt?
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Mr. Iacofano?
Yes.
Mr. Iacofano votes yes. Mr. Rambo?
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley?
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mayor Haney?
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By a vote of 5 to 4, the Rambo amendment passes. So just a second here.
Did it pass or did not pass?
It passed.
Did pass.
Can I move to defer this back to committee then?
Hold on just a second. We have voted on 3 different amendments. The next vote, if there are no further amendments, would be on the final reading.
Yes, sir, that is pending, and that motion is pending, so that would need to be dealt with first before any other motions, unless it's another motion to amend, a further amendment.
I cannot motion to.
So the amendment would be to the document itself, to the ordinance itself?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so can I or can I not entertain an amendment to send it back to committee at this point?
Well, sir, it wouldn't be an amendment. Just to be technical, I want to make sure everybody understands, it wouldn't be an amendment. But I believe that the motion would have to be dealt with first to approve.
Okay. I will defer to the parliamentarian. That's why we have one. We are to the motion to approve as amended with the 3 amendments that have passed. Final reading of this ordinance. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. All right. We already have a motion to approve. Is there any further discussion? All right, this is on final. A vote yes is to pass this with the amendments that have been made tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Corley?
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mr. Iacofano?
No.
Mr. Iacofano votes no. Mr. Rambo? Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley?
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Mayor Haney?
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
By a vote of 7-2, the final reading of the ordinance passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 22008.
That concludes that section of our agenda. This moves us to item number 9, committee actions, health, recreation, and events, approval of the 2022 Blessing of the Fleet beneficiaries. I'm going to grab something to drink real quick. If something, is there a presentation from staff or?
No, sir, but I can read them. I have the document here. The first entity is East Cooper Community Outreach. The second is Carolina Children's Charity. And the third, well, that's just it. 2, correct? Nicole? Just 2. I agree with you. For your consideration.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second.
Motion approved.
And a chair that almost missed his seat.
Can you repeat that motion, please? I'm sorry.
We'll repeat the
We were
motion.
like, made the motion.
Carrie, what do you want? Just a motion to approve?
Blessing of the Fleet beneficiaries.
Yeah, we just
Thank you.
approved the beneficiaries.
That's
Thank
what
you.
it was. Is that all you need, or
Thank
do you
you.
want to?
Turn the page.
No, I read through it. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so you're good, Ms. Santos?
I'm good.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Council new business, there are no items for council new business. Old business, final reading of an ordinance to amend the budget for the town for the fiscal year.
Second.
Second.
Motion to approve, second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The budget amendment is approved. Give me 1 second. Item C is executive session, which would be for legal and contractual to discuss employment agreement for the town of Mount Pleasant General Counsel. Personnel would be to make appointments to boards and commissions, the Board of Zoning Appeals, Commercial Design Review Board, Historic Preservation Commission. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second before the vote or discussion. We'll read this, that council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of going into executive session for these reasons, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will go into executive session. Are we going to our usual place? Yes, sir. Okay. We have reconvened from executive session. The clerk will note the time. No votes were cast and no action was taken. However, there may be nominations or motions to result from the conversation. Mr. Santos.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recommend Mr. Tim Keel for the Commercial Design and Review Board.
We have a motion and a second for the Design Review Board. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Mayor, I'd like to move for the Historic District Preservation Commission, 3 members, Robert Crossland, Louisa Montgomery, and Jean Goligly.
All right, we have the nomination, motion to, and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next.
Mayor, on Boza, I'd like to move for Mr. Barry Wolf and Mr. Julian Hopkins.
We have a motion to nominate Mr. Barry Wolf and Mr. Julian Hopkins for reappointment to BOZA. Did we have a second?
A second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nope.
No.
No.
Just a minute. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Nope. Do we need to count?
We got to take them
We'll have to,
individually.
we'll do a roll call. All right, do the roll call, please.
Yep. We should have individualized.
Well,
All right, please. All right, call the roll.
Ms. Hyatt.
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mr. Icoffano.
No.
Mr. Icoffano votes no. Mr. Rambo.
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Ritchie. No. Mr. Ritchie votes no. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley.
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman.
Aye.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley.
Nope.
Ms. Corley votes no. Mayor Haney.
Aye.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
All right,
6 to
the
3.
motion fails. Do we have another motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Giles Branch to
Second.
BOZA.
Just a second.
Second.
Just one?
Just one.
Yeah, we'll do it one at a
Yes.
time.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? The motion passes. Do we have another?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Julian Hopkins for BOSA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Mr. Julian Hopkins for BOZA. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Hopkins is reappointed. There being nothing else before this council, we stand adjourned.